Live from Studio A in PressCorps World Headquarters, this is Zero Dark PressCorps. It's a live, community-based call-in show, fielding your thoughts on and tales from the Foxhole War. So join the Discord right now through the link below, sign in through the call queue text channel, and hop in the voice lounge for a chance to share your story. Tonight's developer guest, lead developer Markfoot, community manager KrazyFlyinChicken, and now your host, 13-time winner of the Geoffrey Jennings Award for Excellence in Journalism, Geoffrey Jennings.
Welcome to Zero Dark PressCorps. Just as the man said, we got a packed show here today. Not just, of course, our two developer guests, as always. We've also got members of the PressCorps joining in, kind of the peanut gallery and supplementary as well. And then, of course, a channel jam-packed. I think this is the most people we've had simultaneously calling in. So you know what? We'll get right into it, gentlemen. In terms of I'll punt it to the PressCorps here. How was the 50-second conflict for you guys?
I lost a lot of shit. Some friends of mine took, not my friends really, they're just faction mates, took a lot of my arm mats, petrol, and HE mats, so I kind of just like decommissioned myself for the midway through the war. So
fair enough.
Yeah.
No, I
lost a lot of
that.
stuff, so I couldn't do that.
I can relate. Raz, how about you?
Well, I took a bit of a shrapnel impact during the 51st conflict, and I was hospitalized for the entirety of the 52nd.
I shouldn't be laughing, but you know, that's about par for the course for our frontline correspondent. So glad to see you're all right, and glad to see you here tonight. And I know
I ended up learning all the medical personnel's names.
That's good. That's good. And I know Kiana was more here just to listen in. That's all right. I think he's drawing us right now. He's drawing us sitting around in the studio because he's one of our resident press artists. But we also, as I mentioned before, we have our developer guests, lead developer Markfoot and community manager KrazyFlyinChicken. Gentlemen, either one of you, how are you doing?
Fantastic. Pretty good. I just got XCOM Chimera Squad, and of course, the first character I buy is my snake waifu.
You mean Mia?
Dork.
I love it. I've been following some of that lovely controversy, quote unquote, about having a snake member of your team. And you know, just watching a controversy from the outside in is absolutely fascinating. And you know what? Even speaking of which, I think the developers had a statement here tonight for some of the recent talkings and goings on among the community. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. So I noticed there's a lot of people here calling in. Probably, I have a suspicion I know what they're calling in for. So we've sort of prepared a statement here, and that's exactly what this is. It's a prepared statement. So bear with me if this does sound a little bit. But that being said, what we're about to say here has nothing to do with any one particular issue. It really has to do with a lot of community drama that I think a lot of you older players have seen over the years. Not just this, but many past incidents. So let me pull it up one second. So yeah, internet controversy. Foxhole is a game with a passionate community, and I'm looking at you guys in that channel over there. The passion is a double-edged sword. At times our fan base creates content that is exciting to read about and wonderful for the health of our game. Radio shows like this one, PressCorps, are unique to our particular community genre. Foxhole Competitive League, the Foxhole Festival, fight clubs, clans all stem from that passion that has led so many of you to follow our development for so many years. And when there is controversy, we know it comes from the same place. We are, of course, hearing your concerns and listening to your questions. They will be addressed. I'm, of course, mentioning the ones that come on the... When big issues come up, we have learned it is never right to take immediate action. Bad decisions are made in haste. We will, of course, take action to try and mitigate the harm such controversies can have on it. Such controversies can have on the individuals and to the development of. But the fundamental problems that we must address should and will be exercised with calm heads after the controversy has passed. It will take time for us to implement any changes to the game to address these problems, and in the meantime, we ask that you, the players, do your best to be patient with us and with each other. Discuss your disagreements, and if temporary solutions cannot be found, try to reach a place of mutual understanding. This is the most unique, interesting, and passionate community I have ever had the privilege to be a part of. Good or bad, we know that whatever happens next will surprise us, and we would have it no other way. That's it. Thanks.
Yeah, so there you go. Community manager, KrazyFlyinChicken, telling us how the devs are approaching the whole recent flare-ups with streaming and whatnot, and how how you show things on the map, and what kind of the rules there are, and really there haven't been a lot of clear and explicit rules, and I think that's something that again you mentioned you're going to discuss internally, have been discussing internally, so we'll see what happens when something else comes online, when you gentlemen are ready to talk to us about that. I did have some contextual questions as well, a couple of them. If you don't mind me asking, first of all, is it technologically feasible to implement a concerted game option that allows the streamer to see the map and the chat, but not their audience? Is that technologically possible?
Might be a good question for you, Mark.
Yeah, so I think that we actually talked about that specific thing this week without getting too far into it. I do believe there are options to do that sort of thing, but it's not as straightforward to just rely on the game. I think it does, my understanding, which again is probably not as thorough as a lot of other people out there, is that it does also require a certain degree of integration or setup on the part of the streamer, right? But again, this is something that we have to look at a bit more closely, and as was just said, it's definitely something that we want to look at for the long term and not make any sort of like snap decisions on.
Yeah, that sounds about right in terms of just things being more complicated than they seem. Because I know there's certain streamers like Freerk, for instance. He live streams Foxhole, and he has a hotkey that switches on his OBS that can switch to a nice little art rendition that he made instead of showing the map. But he has to set it up in a very specific way. It's not. I don't think it's as easy as people think. I know I saw Bear has expressed on the forums as well that he said that, yeah, it's not just as easy as well because there's a delay, and by then how much have I leaked, and there's all sorts of different ways streamers are doing it. And in terms of actually having a simple game, a quote unquote simple game option, well, there's a lot of getting into the weeds, which I am ill-equipped to properly get into. And I guess my other question here, and I'll keep it short because we want to get to our callers, is looking at it from just an overall game design standpoint, zooming out here for a second, Foxhole currently operates on a basis where every single player has complete access to their faction's survey and communications networks, that being the map and the chat box. What are your thoughts? And again, we're not saying that any of this will be implemented in the game, confirmed anytime soon. But what are your thoughts on potentially altering such a total and comprehensive access? Either one of you.
I think, well, I've talked to Mark about this a couple of times, but the intelligence game in Foxhole definitely needs some work. I think that we love the radio intel and the way that the intel works in game. I think is really, really cool. It's something that's not in a lot of other games, if any. But we need to expand on it. It's still really, really rudimentary. I think this kind of intel that is sort of like prevalent across the entire world has been in the game for a very, very long time. And I know that intelligence is on our list of things to revisit.
Yeah, and it gets real tricky too because looking at the world wars and how intelligence was handled there. Well, how do you, or just military intelligence in general? How do you keep things secret? Well, you keep certain information away from the grunts on the ground and keep it kind of towards a high brass. But this thing, uh, in Foxhole, there is no brass, right? Everyone is equal, unless you get into certain regimental internal rankings, but that has nothing to do with how players are, and all players are equal to each other. So, it gets real complicated real quick in terms of altering game design. So I don't know if Markfoot had anything to say about that either, or if KFC kind of covered it.
Yeah, I think that basically it is an area that we do want to take a look at some point. But a big reason why that's not something we would necessarily sit down and look at like right now is because we we have a roadmap of things that we feel are the highest priority, and a lot of these things take a lot of time to execute, and it's not always like it's kind of hard to explain. But if like if we stopped the show to focus on, so this is another reason why when something like this happens, we want to handle it when everyone's heads is cool, not just because it's a good idea to handle things when you're a lot more like rational, but it's also because you don't want to stop the entire show to address something when you're working on something else that is arguably um, a lot more important to the project in the long run, right? If you were to sort of say, if we're working on something like Logi, which we are right now, I think the spring update hopefully had a few things that were good, but we're still working on that. This is something that we have to work on and we have to stay the course on, and this is a lot of work. This is something that requires the whole team to touch all different parts of the project. It's a complicated beast, and it's like a juggling act. And if at any time you're in the middle of this like juggling act, something happens on the subreddit, something like explodes, I understand for the players that is their context. That's the thing that matters probably to them, probably matters to them the most at that point in time. But if we stop the show every time that happened, then you'll never get those improvements to Logi. You'll never get any of the actual progress made, because that juggling act is going to be thrown is going to be thrown to the side, and you're going to lose like, all your momentum. You're going to stop people from working on like very important things that have been planned for a very long time. Which is That's another reason why, right? So it's like there's a time and place for everything, and I know it doesn't always necessarily line up with what is the loudest thing on the subreddit at this point in time, right? But it's very important that uh, we all have like the discipline to make sure that the show does go on and these important things are actually worked on.
Mhm. All right, hey, makes sense to me. I think we'll go right into the callers now. Again, we have an unprecedented number of people calling in at the same time, which is fantastic. I love it. But in order to try and save some time, I think I feel bad implementing this because I don't know if they expected it. But in order to make things orderly, I think anyone who's part of a regiment, I think we'll have to cram them all into one single call, which is going to be very chaotic because I think there's 6, 7, 8, 9 people from War and Navy all in here at once. But hey, we'll try and make it work as best as we can. But you know what? I think here to reclaim the throne as the first caller here in the call queue is Spots the Legionnaire. Spots, welcome back. I should also mention before we get in earnest to the call. If you want to get in here, make sure to go to the PressCorps Discord through the link below and go into the call queue channel and just type anything in, and I see the line there. Just be aware that it's kind of client side based on what I see. So if it's different on your end, I'm sorry, but it's pretty much what I see in terms of the order. But in any case,
remember, if you get here early, you can easily get into the top positions of the call queue.
Yeah, indeed. So Spots, what do you have for us here?
First things first is I have a interesting story. This happened like a couple war conquests ago. It was the war that we had. I think it was the colonies were starting on the southwest and the Warrens were in the northeast. So basically, long story short, was after a massive map reset happened. After a massive map reset happened, and after the riots, because every time the servers go down, people riot in the streets for some reason. Well, let's just say there was like a massive thing going on where both sides were just coming together, like wondering what is happening, and where we're discussing and we're having a little truce, and then everything changed when the tankers attack, and they basically ruined the entire mood. And long story short is that we managed to, the tankers were pushing forward, and we managed to sticky one of their tanks, and then the next thing you know, I equipped 3 stickies, and I went right into the enemy base that they didn't have up parts in, so no active defenses, because it was kind of like a what's going on situation. And I managed to walk right next to the enemy LT and lob stickies on it while every warden at their base was trying to kill me. And I managed to get the mythical 3 stickies numbers, the threshold to kill any vehicle, the threshold to kill the light tank in game. And basically the light tank was lost at the cost of me getting pummeled to death.
You know, there's go ahead, KFC, go ahead.
I love your stories, Spots. Don't ever change.
I was gonna say it's always something when someone bum rushes the line and they manage to break through, and there's about 10 other soldiers looking at him, all looking at him, going, "Is no one gonna shoot this guy? Oh, I'm gonna have to shoot him." But by then he's already launched 3 stickies, and then everyone's like, "Well, now we all feel like idiots." Trust me, we've all been there. For everyone on the opposite end of that story.
Remember that one time I told you the story how I rushed the enemy encampment while screaming "Scooby Dooby Doo, where are you?"
Well, now you're just rubbing salt on the wound.
Yeah. But anyways, I was actually interested in the idea of more dynamic wars. What could that possibly mean? Maybe like the entire map being empty except for 2 regions?
What do you mean by more dynamic? Can you specify?
Like they mentioned in their latest dev blog about more dynamic wars. This was something in the latest dev blog. Not dev blog, dev stream.
Dev stream.
They mentioned more dynamic wars. My idea for a more dynamic war is a war where each side has like maybe one town or like one region they start in, and they have to like expand and take territory across the map, creating more dynamic front lines.
We were talking about that today, in fact. But to get to your question about the dynamic wars, what we meant on the dev stream was when we were talking about Deadlands up until this point. So for those who don't know, who didn't watch the dev stream, Deadlands is getting a revamp. We're moving a bunch of towns around. We've also added like a whole bunch of. Well, I think we added back Callahan's Gate.
Thank God, my old favorite town coming back.
Right? Yeah, it was our favorite of Matt's and mine too. So we put a lot of love into it. But the main point of the Deadlands revamp was to allow us to change the configuration, because up until this point, you guys may have noticed that every single war, Deadlands had to be configured in exactly the same way, because there was no other way to get both sides within a certain range of abandoned ward. In the early days of the Hex world, we tried a few different things, but ultimately the wardens kept ending up with abandoned ward at the start of every war, and so we had to settle on this current configuration where there's these 3 neutral regions on the right side of the map, and we just were not happy with it. So we needed now with the revamp, we should be able to have more dynamic starting conditions in Deadlands. You're not always starting in salt farms and Spine.
Yeah, and I think on top of the map changes, I think this is always a work in progress, but we always want to. Our ultimate goal is that like every war plays out at least slightly like differently. There's a lot of things with the pacing right now that kind of happens very similarly. Each war, there's always sort of this trade-off between sort of like instability versus I guess wars that are too like stagnant, and I think this is something that we were also kind of talking about. It is trying to break things up a bit. Trying to give more player agency back to players with regards to things like efficiency and things of that sort. So that's also kind of what we meant.
As well as that, I was interested. There was a planet map back in the day called Isthmus Delta that was never added, but that gave me like my creative juices flowing. What if we get a map that's just a river delta, like a river delta? That'll be a pretty interesting map to fight over.
Yes, Vietnam.
That's Endless Shore. It's kind of a river delta.
Yeah, as well as that, I have to say, if so, this was a yesterday conversation. If we could revamp every map, my opinion, Drownfield needs a revamp. It's interesting, but not fun to fight in. I like the idea where Drownfield was. What if there was a map that is a swamp or a marsh that you fight over? But how is executing not fun? It's not really fun to fight over.
Well, I mean, if you don't mind a minus 50% speed debuff, or speed, debuff whenever you're walking through them, which reminds me of the old Pharaonic Coast. I forget who I was talking to about the original OG Pharaonic Coast, which we did a report on, by the way, way back when. But we're pretty much, the two landmasses were not connected, and then the western landmass, I think that was the colonial, and I don't remember, but most of it was just marshes. So whenever you try to walk, and Lord help you if you if your vehicle was destroyed and you're just stuck there in the middle of a marsh, you're just forced to wade through it. So yeah, I hope we don't see any of that again, but I may be proven wrong.
Yeah, the issue of maintenance. Back in the day, I think they did do a little overhaul to Drownfield with the side road, but there's an issue with the side road when you get to the town that's, I forgot its name, not Lockie's Head, it's something else. But when you get to the town, there's like a really steep like gate there that you can't drive over with any vehicle, so you have to drive around and then go up a different direction. If they could like decrease the incline, like make it have like a longer incline up there, it's actually gonna be like easier to get into the town I'm thinking of.
We'll see. We'll see. I'd love to see write-ups as always, but you know what, Spots, we got a lot of people to get to. So Spots,
Yep.
Thank you so much again for reclaiming the throne. Last episode you were not the first one, but here you're going to restart a new streak.
I shall reclaim my streak.
Reclaim your
Make
No
that
one
streak.
can
streak
stop
forever,
my
bro.
autism.
We need to keep a tally now of just whenever he gets on first.
Yeah, really. All right, Spots, have a good one. Thank you so much. Farewell. All right, coming up next, Terrento, who claims to be the first one who put in himself in the call queue, but again, it's client side. So again, it's whatever I see on my screen. If you ever have questions about it, I'll send you a screen share. But in any case, Terrento, welcome back to Zero Dark PressCorps. Thank you so much. What do you got for us here tonight?
The usurper.
Hey guys, good night. Well, it is an honor to be talking to you. My question is, it's not that much of a question, but more of a general discussion thing that I have. Because like you guys showed us an 80 half track on the last dev stream, and so like when I saw that, I was curious about like you guys don't need to say if you're not comfortable with. But what is your general own opinion about like vehicle modularity? Like instead of building vehicles as a whole, just building parts of it and then assembling it together or something.
Yes, light tank with battle tank turret intensifies.
Yeah, I kind of laughed because this is related to some things that we're working on right now, and I think in terms of whether building things modularly is not necessarily something that we're that interested in right now. But I think what we are interested in is how do I discuss this without? I'm trying to think about how I can discuss this properly without saying more than I should at this point, but I think we are definitely interested in allowing players to have like the output of what modular system would be. We will want that same kind of output, right? Like we would want players to something like the AT half track being able to see more variations like that is something that we're interested in, right?
I've been suggesting vehicle mods for swapping out weaponry and certain aspects and utilities for since I think 2017. I got the Reddit post to prove it, but it's that's actually the first thing I thought of too when the AT half track was first announced. It's like, well, that makes way more sense than having being able to swap out things from a chassis instead of having to build a whole different thing entirely. And again, is that what the devs have in mind? I don't know, and I think Markfoot's given us the best answer he can here. But
so there's something I would holding the gun. There's something I will like add to that. I think we're interested in like one thing we think is cool is half tracks and trucks being more like modular in a way, because that kind of makes sense. They're actually you being able to sort of change what's on top of a truck or change what's on top of a half track, just as a concept, as an example, is sort of more so than like changing the turret on a tank, right? Just from the concept standpoint, I think we'd be more excited about that.
Yeah, I think I remember, people were talking about, well, it wouldn't be, certainly nothing would be a straight upgrade where something has to be absolutely codified, where it's like, well, of course you have to have this upgrade for the tank. Would it be something more like, again, answer if you can, but be something more like, okay, yeah, you have extra armor on the sides of the tank, but now it runs 40% slower or something to battle tank level. If it's, let's say, if it's a light tank, or something where there's a true tactical trade-off and trade-in for that.
Do you want to talk about that, Max?
Something.
Oh yeah, sure. Throw me under the bus.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt.
The
but
modded
more
bus.
like side grades, right?
Side grades, yeah, that's a thought.
I think I would turn that question around on you guys, because, like Mark said, we're working on this stuff. Like we already have a pretty we're it's so fluid right now that this is the time to get your suggestions in, talking about this kind of thing, because it's where things are still not. But what we're interested in most of all is what you guys find interesting. Like, to me, slapping some extra armor plates onto the side of the tank to increase your health might sound really cool, because you get armor tanks, or you get a slightly healthier tank. But like, how long do you think that's going to entertain you guys? Like, just
forever.
If there is a tactical choice behind it, I think it can entertain us for a long time in terms of the strategic choice, and of course everything has to matter. So yes, you're absolutely right. If it was a straight upgrade where no one in their right mind would bring forth this vehicle if it didn't have these upgrades, then yeah, then it's a chore. Then it's just become this other thing in the production pipeline where, oh yeah, you could say we don't need it, but really you do. But if it's
like AP.
Yeah, exactly. If it's something like AP, where it's like, well, you never know. Maybe we have say 3 tanks. Maybe we should have one running with HE and then the other 2 with AP, or maybe we'll toss it around. Let's see what the intel says. Have we spotted opposing armor? I don't know. I think there is a lot of lateral movement there. If given the choice, and again, it comes down to the weeds of what are those upgrades. And is there
I would make the most armored tank ever. Literally just armor on all sides.
And you should be penalized for that. You should be penalized for that heavily, to the point where that thing moves a mile a minute. And then you become subject to, you become a victim to fire support, for instance. But it can take a few rounds.
The engine breaks down.
The engine
tracks
breaks
fall off.
I know people are probably going to come in here talking about impossible tangent is, like in Company of Heroes 2, more depth to vehicles, where it's, let's say, oh, your engine, like you said, your engine took a hit, so now you have to repair that, and then you'll regain all the speed that you lost, or something like that. So there's a whole lot of depth to it. How the shells bounce off the armor. There's how vehicles turn. Although I think you guys talked about that. So yes, in terms of side grades, I think there's a lot of open-mindedness for that. I think Terrento would agree.
Yep. That's the answer I was looking for. Just general acceptability for the. If I may, I want to add just one more thing. It just talking conceptually here. If like just we enter this topic, I was thinking like something crazy. Like just if we can start simple for, let's say, you can have like a tank running on diesel, but it's a gas guzzler, like a heavy gas guzzler. So is it really worth it?
Yes. Yes, anything not to go farm petrol.
Hey, Terrento, I have a question for you.
Should I wait?
If you could have any vehicle, and I mean anything out of fantasy, out of World War II, World War I, whatever, anything, what vehicle?
Say the crocodile, say the crocodile, say the crocodile.
Yak Tiger. Tank Destroyer.
Crocodile.
Any tank destroyer.
I want a thicker tank.
A thicker tank, like THICC.
That's
I don't know.
I was not expecting that answer.
I want a tank that requires a 10-man crew.
Oh, so like a mega tank, like
A Mark 5.
Yeah.
It's a Mark 5. He wants a Mark 5.
Nice.
Basic.
Let it be known he wishes for the Mark 5.
I wish
Super battle
just a super battle tank, like
those concept art tanks like that.
There's a thought.
Like the really big ones that look like the rat concept art shit, and they're like 10 times big. If someone added that, I would punch them because that's physically, I don't know why they would ever add that. That's really dumb. But it would be cool.
Kiana Van Panzer has messaged me saying, "Anvil, please give us Anvil. Someone please mention the Anvil." And I'm assuming that's a tank, right?
Oh.
Is it?
Never heard of it.
Anvil?
I'm searching.
That sounds really Oh, that's one of the fan art ones. That's why it sounds familiar. Isn't
okay.
that the one that Panzer?
Had a bunch of shirts.
Oh, the concept Panzer made, his namesake.
Isn't that the giant Warden one that he made?
Yeah, I think that's pretty much what Terrento's asking for. Is a 10-man.
I think Terrento's asking for something bigger than that.
Even bigger? Oh man.
Just imagine this.
Do you just want the
tank?
1000?
No, like just imagine this tank that has like light artillery on the four corners and a big cannon on top of it that basically deletes anything that
Storm cannon. Mobile storm cannon.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, there's some mood concept art of this tank, I know.
It's so slow, it can only move by digging trenches.
We have the Anvil concept art.
Yeah, that one.
That does look nice.
I forgot how shucked that thing was.
Let me get it on the screen here. It's going to take a bit, but regardless, I would say the PressCorps News Zeppelin, which gets some of our above the air shots, which you can actually see now on the PressCorps Foxhole desk. Potato, as always, making some great content, and he has shot some video with our news intern Ralphie, and he made use of that thing. So that's what I would say. But you know what, Terrento, thank you so much for your time as always, entertaining us with these great questions. Until next time.
Until next time, thanks for listening to me.
Bye.
All right, that's, by the way, it's on the screen now, is what we were talking about, the Anvil. That was conceptualized by our very own Kiana Van Panzer. And in the meantime, we will now toss it to Lafar Fide 3981. Welcome to Zero Dark PressCorps. Thank you so much for coming on to the show. How are you doing this evening?
Oh, doing all right. Just I'm working on a project, running 3D printers and different stuff like that.
Ooh, 3D.
Yes, that's pretty cool. Okay, so I have a very burning, important question I think all the community wants to have an answer to, and it's a serious question. That being, and it is for Mark, when is your mixtape dropping?
Can we get a sample?
Here he is asking the question for the people.
Next week.
Next
Good.
week.
I'm gonna hold. Good, because I'm gonna hold you on to. I'm gonna hold you up to it.
I'm gonna need a link to my SoundCloud.
No, seriously, this war for me was kind of a blast. Not gonna lie. That was fun. Fighting in Alad's Blight. To take that town for multiple days. I know there's some people would like me to ask about the whole Hans controversy, and I don't really care about it. It's
I mean, you've already got your answer. I think the opening statement KFC and Mark made at the beginning there is what you're gonna get.
It is what I'm gonna get, and let's face it, every game developers face the thing of paying somebody to promote their games. Like bigger games like Ubisoft does that all the time. I don't really want to talk about it. So I want to talk about my personal story. So I'm playing on Alice Blight a couple of days ago. Just fighting at the front. That front was very chaotic. And at some point, I'm shooting at a target far off the screen. Someone runs in front of me, gets downed by my bullet, and then goes on the ground. A medic ran up to him, get the guy back up, get him back in the fight. I keep firing at my target. I go to get a package at the door. I come back, and it says that I'm being banned by admin. So my first question is, somebody must have seen something they shouldn't have or whatever. Go to Modmail. I'm being told that I got banned for harassing players and griefing and all that stuff. So okay, I'm frustrated. I vent. Next morning, because that was the same day you guys have the dev stream when you said that you took every situation, like every case by case, so that you were looking at stuff case by case basis. I end up looking at the stream where Hans, because it turns out that the guy that died down was helping Hans, the streamer. It's very clear on this live stream that this was an accident. There was no foul play involved. I sent the video to Modmail that I clipped, and I never got answer. So I was fighting for 4 days consecutively, thanks to the quarantine, on Adult's Bite to take that town. During my 3-day ban, the town fell and the war ended, effectively robbing me of all the hard work I put into that map to see it come to an end. What I want to ask Markfoot is there a preferential treatment for people when it comes to the community streamers? For talk, like in regards to the rest of the community.
Yeah, so I'm not gonna talk too much about this because we already discussed it at the beginning, but there is something that there is. So first of all, no, there isn't a preferential treatment, because when we receive a mod mail, it is treated like a mod mail. We just sort of treat it as like a case by case, according to the same way that the last one was treated.
And I understand. And I understand if it was this word against mine, no proof. You know, he might have interpreted it that way. Then that's fine. That's not the problem. The problem I have is when I provide evidence to you guys, you still decide to not ban me for the past 3 days. Where I have a Reddit post right now where I posted the video, and it's at more than 40 comments, and there's not a single comment in this that think that this intent was malicious.
Yeah, so I'm not going to talk about any specific case because it's sort of like we discussed long ago. This is not something we don't talk about specific cases.
But in
general, and especially on a forum such as this. But there is one thing that I do want to be clear on, right? And I'm not going to say what it will be like in the future. I won't say what it will be like in the far past, but like there's been a lot of things that are said, and I think it's easy for information to be passed around, and we largely don't really want to go around and say, hey, look, that's not true, because we know a lot of people, it's difficult, to sort of separate these things.
So, hear me get this. Are you accusing me of lying?
No.
I think this is.
Yeah,
I think this is a relatively inappropriate question.
Yeah, LaFarfade, hold on.
There was
For the
something-
record, I did just mute LaFarfade, and I don't mean to silence anyone. Hashtag. I was silenced, but I'm sorry. This does not seem like the appropriate place to talk about this. Again, the devs have made clear that anything involving mod mail, anything involving wrongful bannings or anything like that. Again, please bring that up to DMs. Please bring that up to talking to them specifically in a more appropriate manner than going onto a show and trying to force a conversation in front of everyone. So anyway, I do appreciate that. So you know what, LaFarfade, thank you so much for calling in. Duly appreciate it. But we're going to move on now to our next caller.
There is.
Oh, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry,
Mark.
if I may.
Yeah, sure.
I did want to clarify that last point because I do feel like I was cut short. I was not talking about that specific case, right?
Mm-hmm.
When I was saying about like some information gets like spread, I wasn't talking about that case. And in fact, I'm not even going to say anything about that case, right? But in terms of like people discussing things about like sponsorship, right? Like that's not typically something that we have done. We have done some of that stuff in the past, but it's been almost a year since we've done any sort of thing with regards to like sponsor like videos and such like that. Just because I know that different people have very different ideas about this. I'm not saying that's not something that we won't do in the future. In fact, we will do that in the future. I'm also not saying that's something that we haven't done in the past, because we have done that in the past. But all I'm saying is that for almost a year, this is not something at this stage of development that we are currently doing. I just wanted to make that clear, because I feel like that's something that a lot of people have the wrong impression about. So that's what I was referring to. I was not referring to any particular case.
Mm-hmm. I'm just waiting for my check in the mail. All the money I make from this, from the PressCorps project, which is, by the way, nothing. I make absolutely nothing off of this.
Who does?
Yeah.
We live in your basement.
Yeah, all the PressCorps interns live in my basement, which is a little weird. How it was hard feeding them all. But in any case, we're gonna move on now to. This is gonna be tricky because we have. I don't even know if they'll fit on the screen. I'm sorry, but we have. All the members of the Warden Navy are now joining us now, and again, I have to do this because.
Oh my God! Holy shit!
Oh, we're in here now.
And that's everyone
all
from the Warden Navy.
screamed. I don't think I would be able to do anything.
Okay, real quick. Clear comms. Who's gonna be the front man here, the point man for talking? Is it Von Klaus?
I guess I would be. I mean, they maybe have a few like we're not. They have probably like minor like questions or whatever. I just have like I'm asking a bigger general question about things, but yeah, I can take the lead here.
Sure, and you know
How's
what?
it going, everybody?
Going well. Von Klaus is at the bottom. You can't even see him, and I can't just. For the record, I can't make the asset smaller because it literally goes off of the asset. So, and that's a whole coding issue. But anyways, yeah, Von Klaus, go ahead. Von Klaus from the Warden Navy.
All right, so it was an awesome war. I had a really good time this war. Definitely really like all the Logi improvements. One thing I know nobody's probably going to give you props for, but Godscroft is a lot better. I mean, other than that oddball watchtower that was possible to get a CV up there, everything I talked about it with some other vets, and we really like the improvements that are done to the map. So I think you're going to get a lot less complaints. You're not going to have to really worry about reworking that too much anymore. Thankfully, we enjoyed basing out of there, and like I said, it should be a lot smoother on there. My first major question is about the nukes. Not just my clan, but several other Warden clans spent like pretty much a whole day prepping the nuke site, only later to find out by another player in-game that the nukes were bugged. And then one of us had to contact one of the mods to find that out. Is there any reason that, we weren't alerted about that sooner?
Yep, I can explain that one. So we got a report on one day from one player who's saying that the warhead wasn't working, that they submitted the requirements for it, and then they didn't get their warhead out. So we went and took a look at it, and we said, oh shoot, it's bugged. We created our bug report for it, and honestly, then we were probably way too slow to react to it, but we took it and we realized there was a problem, so we fixed the bug, and then by this point 2 or 3 other people had tried it and lost their materials. So I had refunded the ones that I could, and then we issued a command that restricted it from being built, the booster and the warhead. But unfortunately, it's true, some resources were lost.
Well, I mean, besides that, though, I kind of wish you guys would have put out a general announcement, especially around that tag, because there's probably going to be some other people that might even ask about that, because at least in the future, if you guys could maybe, especially something that game-changing, that's that big of thing, to let everybody know, because especially for the community, some people, I know we had like a sergeant who spent like a whole day building it up, and he's probably got like 20, 30 hours in game maybe. So especially to be that new and to put so much effort into something that only to later then find out it doesn't work is really a bummer. I know it's the warhead part that you guys refunded, but you got to think about the defenses and that kind of thing that people put into it.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's a bummer for us too, because like this war was dragging on, and it was like one of the reasons we felt was because the rocket sites weren't getting used, and honestly, we love to see them get used. It's one of the key moments of the wars for us, especially one of the longer-lasting wars. So we really like to see them. But yeah, no, that's definitely on us. That's our fault. It was a pretty bad bug.
Was it known beforehand, or was it did it pop up and then it was kind of trying to figure out what was going on?
We didn't know about it until somebody had already tried to build it. So by this point, I imagine the defenses were the rocket sites were already being prepped.
I don't want to intercede on that, but I don't think they were prepared until like the day before the nukes. And I believe that one clan knew before any of the other clans, and they didn't tell the other clans. So besides creating maybe an issue about that, it was created confusion because we didn't know if it was true or not. And then people, it's kind of a word of mouth thing, and especially for something in game, it's a difficult position for a player to be in. When you're working on word of mouth for several different players, it's like, I don't know. And then message mod mail, and it takes a couple hours, sometimes for mod mail. So it's not like an immediate thing, and people are still going to be building in that time because they're unsure of that. But anyway, we can move on. Did any of the other members had smaller questions? Because I just wanted to see if see if you guys had a question for us. If not, involving naval invasions. But let me see if any of the other guys had a smaller question.
I have something not related. Do you ever plan on fixing the bridges at
I'm trying to think of a
Saltbrook?
question, to be quite honest.
Because you can't get the gunboat under the bridges at Saltbrook. And it's hard to
Or the
get fighters
freighter.
Yep, I'm aware of that one. It's logged.
Okay, thank you.
I guess my question to the WN is, what was the last big successful naval invasion you gentlemen led?
Tempest Island. I think amongst players this war that was the best naval invasion.
You say it was this war?
Yes, yeah.
What was the manpower and material in there going into that?
Well, it was mostly key Warden Navy players operating naval vehicles. We coordinated with Vox, the 3rd. 82DK had some players there, and there was a few AS players there. Helping Hans was there for a little bit. He got stream sniped, had his freighter blown up. It was more a lot to do with the plan. Preparation-wise was just our general logistics that we would do as a clan to produce the materials we normally operate with. And the main thing was the planning was key in timing. Like several elements hit all at the same time. So we were able to take out, say, Gale, Rush, and Reef all together within the span of 5 minutes. So when you can take out 3 major targets simultaneously, and then be able to have vets be able to hold off the main choke points, you really can create a situation where even though you have significantly less supplies and probably less manpower, your positioning puts you in a way that you have the advantage. And that's basically what the conditions we created in Temp is. We waited to the opportune time. I wanted to wait till light tanks, so the Colonials had more investment in their armat into that instead of APCs and gunboats themselves. The Colonials did throw about 6 gunboats and about 5 APCs, which was a little low number of APCs, I feel, for that battle. But they still haven't mastered maybe some key elements of naval warfare that maybe we have as a clan, since we specialize in Navy warfare. And we didn't lose a single gunboat until we were attacking the Irish Town Hall, which we then took 2 AP rounds while still shooting our light arty cannon, and got the town 8%, where then our RPGers could get to town. And getting Irish was the real linchpin of it, because then it allowed the forces that were pushing from Gale and the forces that were pushing from Reef to link up and then effectively be one force, and then Lyre's Haven was then completely cut off.
I guess
Yeah,
my follow-up...
I was watching
go ahead.
some of it. I was watching some of that battle. The way, when you guys were pushing into Iris, I was flying above just watching the battle. It was really cool to see. You guys is being able to run a logistics chain cross water for an extended period of time in order to take the town. That's really cool. I'd love to hear more about what exact challenges you guys faced in order to make that, like, what could we do to make that, like, the pain points less painful?
Yeah, that's why I wanted to see, like, if you had any specific questions about that. Like, one big thing was the border queue for Logi.
Yes.
A monster nightmare. So, especially just for one map, just trying to do Logi from Godscroft, Logi guys had to wait 20 minutes. And so there was a couple nerve-wracking moments where maybe a little bit low on shirts, where we were waiting for a Logi guy to get through a queue that he couldn't get through.
I have a really good summary of this. Basically, the way it works right now is that we found out that if you travel to home region and then respawn in Godcroft, then you can take a truck down there and actually cross into the region because your spot is reserved. But if you actually leave the region itself, then your spot is not reserved because someone else already takes it. So you need to fix this issue somehow, that the Logi guys can get in more, because the Logi spots in the server, I feel like, being misused usually because people just want to run in from a different server and just get in there. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
So maybe, I don't know, if you like doing Logi and you run into a full server from a different server, maybe have a timer that it just kicks you out, because you can do everything in 10 minutes, you can deliver, and then you can go on your way.
No, that's a really good point. I'm gonna make a note here.
Do you think it's possible if you had maybe 2 to 3 reserved Logi spawns to where you when you're crossing the border, it asks, are you fighting a fighter or a Logi man?
Yes.
So you check Logi man, you can't fire your weapon, but you can do all the interactions as a Logi person needs to do.
Or you simply get kicked. That's a good fix as well, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think another thing we could just take a look at is the reservation time, because that time period was like, the game has changed a lot since that time period was actually set. So we probably need to take a look at that. I think in general that is a problem that we would be very concerned about. Like, we don't want to block the most important role in the game from being able to get into regions. I think that is, or another alternative is to be able to provide a way to pass supplies over the border, even if you are not able to get in. But I think in any case, it's a problem that we're interested in solving.
Should also mention that this past war, there was also a big colonial an attempt at a naval invasion that was unfortunately, for them at least, squashed. It was a big one. I think the developers were also looking at that one as well. I think it was being led by Carl the Killer Gamer, or at least he reported on it. But I know you responded to it on the Reddit thread, but you were watching that one as well, the colonial one.
Yeah, so I actually pulled off half the team. So if like features are like delayed in update 36, it's in part because of that the naval invasion. But I basically like we caught wind of it, and then like 4 or 5 people from the team, we all went over into a stream that a few of us were running on Discord, and we watched the whole thing. Like we sat there for like 2 hours, and we watched the whole thing. And I have like a whole bunch of like footage from it too. It was super cool, and actually like because those type of naval invasions are kind of rare. Another reason why we were watching it is because we wanted to see what things need to be fixed to make them happen more smoothly in the future. So we were really happy that we got to see it because we did see some flaws and things that we would want to work on in the future. And I think another thing too is like it's sometimes one of the reasons why like you know what, I'll stop there because I know
Okay.
you have like more to say about that, Max. So I don't want to steal all of the time.
I love naval landings. I love them. Anybody who knows me knows that I'm a huge proponent of naval landings. So yeah, I was watching the Tempest Island one, and I watched this one. What set this one apart though? So Tempest Island was cool. Don't get me wrong, but I missed the actual landing part. I jumped in to see the fight on Iris, and I only hung around for maybe 2 hours before I had to get off. But the one that made it special for me at Stone Cradle was that it was an attempt to turn the whole war, right? And that's what we've always wanted naval landings to be. We want it to feel like a D-Day scenario from like World War II, where it's like everything hinges on this one grand moment. And then over the course of the next couple of hours or days, you're going to discover whether or not their gamble was worth it. But where we're obviously falling short is that these invasions are over way too quickly. All that effort poured into this massive invasion, and it was over in 20 minutes. So we need to find some way to make that, even if it does fail, it needs to last longer. And then two, we need to find some way to make it more successful without making it cheap. Because when it wasn't a couple of patches ago, if all it took was a couple of guys in an APC to drive around behind the enemy line, knock out a town hall, and steal it, and that was bullshit. Nobody liked that. And if we push too hard and make it too easy to make a landing, then we get stuff like that, where people coming in the middle of the night. So it's this really hard balancing game we have to act on. But and Naval has sort of taken a back seat to a lot of our game design. But seeing this gave us so many new ideas that I really hope we'll find some time in the schedule to sneak some stuff in.
Yeah, and something else that I'm like super excited about is to give more tools to if you are willing to prepare for something like that, we want to give you more tools to be able to prepare even more effectively for that. And this is exactly one of the reasons why we were interested in squad storage, because we wanted the because the more important thing for squad storage for us, I know different players use it for a variety of reasons, but the important thing for us is not so that necessarily you can save your stuff, right? That's actually not really one of our goals, outside of a few specific cases. Our goal is so that you can prepare something throughout the span of a week, right? We want you, whereas like before this, you could do it, but it was difficult with like Operation Stockpiles. It was super clunky. There was all these corner cases, but we just said, you know what? Let's just get straight to the point. If you want to plan something like a D-Day invasion, what tools are you going to need? And I think squad storage was one of those things that we want to put in there to help with something like this, and we hope in the future. But there's a couple of pieces to that puzzle that are still missing, and I really hope that we can. I really hope that we can fill in those gaps so that more things like this can happen where you have like a high effort thing, you have something that is planned over a couple of days or for a week, and then you can pull off something substantial and like change the war. And that's the whole reason why we even made this game in the first place. It's for something like that, which is why when we saw this the other day, we were all screaming at the screen because this this is what we live for. This is why we wake up every day to work on the game. It's literally for something like that, and that's why I pulled off half the team to like watch this. Anyways,
I like to think that there is a giant monitor in the Clapfoot offices, and it's just running 24/7. Foxholestats.com. And every now and then you can have like cool inserts of what's going on in a stream or something. So actually, were you watching it from a? I don't think that invasion was being streamed or either of them, right? Because I would think operational security would be important there. But I think it was. I think it was more so. Were you watching from the developer point of view?
yes, yeah, exactly. And then we were streaming it to the team, basically.
Right. How'd you get tipped off about it? Did someone say, "Hey, did someone message KFC and saying, "Hey, we're gonna do this," or did you just detect all that material and movement?
I'll just say this: we keep an eye on the war.
Okay.
So when abnormal things happen, like we know about it.
We see everything.
Well, that was a long one, but you know what? We got a big group here. So, Von Klaus, did you have any closing thoughts in here? It's funny. Von Klaus is the last one who was cut off because of the assets.
Good point to bring up a couple things about it. One about the squad storage, you can't score naval vehicles right now. So I'm thinking maybe that's a reason why the Colonials didn't have any gunboats with it. Maybe they were afraid when prepping, or maybe when they were being prepped, they got stolen or something happened to them. You know, that's one big problem we have, especially after we use a gunboat. Unless there's like an awesome dock like Idlo where you can just like park it under two bridges, there's really not a whole lot of places that you can store a boat safely. And then even if you do, you run, somebody else, might destroy it while it's just sitting there in that little behind the little bridge. And another thing is there really probably needs to be some sort of naval counter to APCs. It's probably too daunting for new players in a gunboat going up against even medium skilled APC crews with stickies. It's just they're a lot of times. And I don't really I always have a lot of sympathy for the enemy, but I feel bad when I, kill the sergeant's gunboat and he had 120 shells in it and he fired two. He had 118 shells, So things like that, if there was some sort of counter to APCs navally, maybe in the future or near future, that would probably encourage more naval landings and more kind of things like that.
God, yes. I'm so glad you mentioned Fisherman's Row because I think you may remember, like ages ago, I played very little with you guys, but I played and I remember asking you guys about this stuff. And that was around the time I was developing, I was helping work on Idolo and Fisherman's Row, and I built that place with you guys in mind. Like I was like, what would make the perfect like port town for a Navy like clan to operate out of? I've just like constructed this thing. So I'm glad it worked.
And it's our favorite. It's our favorite. That's why we wish Fisherman's maybe was on the other side a little more out there. But yeah, I mean, like honestly, if you guys take that in mind with docks, maybe in the future design more docks like Idlo or have something like that. I mean, it's not perfect, but something like that at least is better than nothing. I remember one time, it's probably a year ago when Fisherman's had the two-part, when it was part like kind of half what Godscroft is now, and they had the big invasion. We had a gunboat parked in there and it didn't even move, and we were killing tanks and battle tanks just from that one spot because it was so well protected.
Can I say one last thing? Gunboat shells explode on some maps, and some maps they don't if they hit the water. Like on some maps.
Let me rephrase that.
Yeah, please.
I don't know if it was something with the new water effect, but there's definitely something with explosions on water. And some maps things explode on water, and some maps things don't explode on water. Like HE grenades just goes right through, or gunboat
like
shells.
Like there's no explosion at all.
There's nothing. Yeah, it's just dead. It's a dead. And for us, it's a huge advantage because it's like an thing. So we can be a little more pinpoint accuracy. But if we miss, the enemy doesn't even know we're shooting it. So it's a little unfair because then it's just like, okay, adjust a little more as we're sitting behind them and they're looking for. or something like that. But at other times it's frustrating too because you're trying to get an APC that's running at you, and you don't know where the shell's hitting. That's another thing with artillery. I kind of want to bring that up, and a lot of players have been mentioning this to me. They had this problem. There's a lot of artillery shells rendering. Whether it be howitzer, field artillery, gunboat artillery, it just doesn't render in the explosion.
All right.
As in, like, it does damage, but it doesn't show.
Yeah, when you're looking through the binos, you can't see. I mean, the players that are probably like closer to it are seeing it, but the player that's maybe looking at it like from 120 meters or 10 meters away in the binoculars can't see it.
Oh, right. I remember catching this once or twice when we were testing the storm cannon.
Yeah, and it's really probably a bigger deal for newer players. Because, like, for me, I know what I'm hitting even if I don't see it exploding, and I'm just used to it. Like, it's probably just like muscle memory. Like, I see the explosion in my brain. But if you're a brand new player, it's got to be something that's, like, probably very frustrating because you're like, well, am I doing it right? Am I aiming at the right place? Or something like that.
Yeah, I was about to ask if that happened with the storm cannon shells we fired.
Yeah, even with the storm cannon shells, the black earth, like where the hits will render in, but the explosion part will only sometimes render in if you're within, like, direct visual rendering range.
Right, okay.
When we were taking out Reef, I was like on as close to the beach as I possibly could, and I was watching the storm cannon hit Reef. The issue was that the way I could tell, like when I was spotting for it, if it was landing in the right area or not, was I saw enemy defenses around Reef go down. I'd even see the blast or anything.
Okay, that was nerve-wracking to fire because just all the waiting. I don't know how long we waited, but it was like at least 2 hours or something like that.
Yeah.
Well, you know what, gentlemen, thank you so much for your time. Again, if you're part of a group, then feel free to come in here as a group. I mean, I'll have to come in as a group, and you can coordinate your questions here together. But regardless, the Warden Navy here coming with their, as always, signature coordinated profile pictures. And Von Claus here leading the way. But yeah, thank you so much for your time. Hope to catch you up next time.
Hey, thank you guys. Really appreciate it.
All right, now comes the long process of dragging everyone out. Also, you could just go yourself. There we go. Thank you so much. Coming up next, K-Bear 44. K-Bear 44. Again, we always drag people in, so if you're in the middle of a conversation, I am legitimately sorry, but this is the best system we could think of. But K-Bear, thank you so much for joining Zero Dark PressCorps. Did you have anything for us here tonight?
Yeah, I thank you for having me. I enjoy this. I want to say the war was great. I really enjoyed it with all the new players. I could help them, and I could.
We can
and it was
the
more
prodigal children return.
and it was a more open map. But my question was, what was the idea about the full map compared to having some regions cut out?
Yeah, so I can answer that. So this is something that is kind of hard, sort of to. It's kind of hard for everyone to like see because it's a lot more of like a developer thing. It's more of like a developer problem. So I don't like blame anyone actually for like feeling the way they do when if some people want a smaller world. I actually really like sympathize with that, and I can see that's a user problem, and that's why it makes it so hard for us because it's a developer problem that is difficult to reconcile with the user problem, and that is with the queues. Like, we actually got more players than we thought. We thought the first weekend we'd get to around 700 to 800 players, and then we thought that the week after it would be less. But it turned out for a week and a half we peaked at like 800 something players, almost like every day for a week and a half. And the about a week in, we were actually having a lot of problems with the queues. And this isn't the queue that is enforced when there's like a player imbalance. We were actually having a problem with queues because some regions were like locked down, and we knew that this would happen. So when regions are locked down at the border, what happens, and something that we see, and I don't blame anyone because again, this is hard for other like normal players to like see this, but what ends up happening is you get tons of players that just want to get into a contested region so they can have some fun, right? And this might not be all players. I can certainly understand some players have a different context. Maybe they just they're just in the back line, or they're more concerned about something else. But there's a large group of players out there that they just go into the game, they hit the button from the home screen, and they don't necessarily they won't necessarily try to go through the tricks of going to a back line and like running over to the border so that they can get past the queues. Like it gets to the point where there's like sometimes up to 50 people that are sitting there like waiting to try to get into a contested region because there's only look at it this way. When you peak at like 800 players on like any one of those days, and there are only 2 or 3 of those frontline regions that are open, and every region supports like on average 160 players. You can do the math and see how many players are stuck at the back. They're either stuck at the back, they're waiting, they're not able to go in and have their fun. And we this is something that like we foresee, and it's so hard for us because it's not easy for us to just go to players and be like, look at this problem. Like you should understand this problem, because I don't expect anyone to understand this problem because it's a developer problem. But that's the rationale, and in fact, even it's always hard because towards the end of the war, then like population will usually shrink, and then that problem is no longer there, and also it gets maybe like a little harder for players towards the end when there's not as many players, and then there's all the problems show up, and then sort of you have the opposite problem then, right? Which is that players feel like there was too much space and then there was not enough players. So this is something that we always try to balance it. So we sort of make a prediction. Okay, how many players are there going to be? We want to minimize the problems at the beginning of the war, or if there's a sale, and we want to try to minimize the problems that might happen at the end of the war when some players start to like drop off. What is the average experience going to be? And then we try to pick something, and it doesn't always work out. But I think in this past war, it did work out, and moving forward, this is always something that we try to do, and that's the main. There are like other reasons. There are other like secondary reasons, I would say, on why we do this, but that's like the most like immediate reason on why we do it.
I have a follow-up story with this involving last year. You guys remember the Jade Cove War? It was one of the biggest wars we'd ever had in the entire game. 2,000 people. Yeah. Yep. And of course you guys remember. You did the whole report on. One of the stories you might not have heard was how Mark was sitting there through Christmas, managing the queues, like tearing out his hair because there was 2,000 people in the game and only 3 active front lines. And then there would be this like massive naval invasion because there's like 100 people in the back line that can't get into the front. So naturally they're setting up these naval invasions, and we're sitting there on our hands thinking, oh my God, I hope they succeed. I hope they get just one freaking fort so that it can open up a star, and then 150 of these people will drop in there and ease up these queues. That was a very real thing for for Mark and Alcus while they're all through the holiday.
Yikes.
Yep.
It's a funny thing, the sandbox. So, I don't know. K-Bear, did you have any follow-up questions or any comments on that?
No, I like that there wasn't a lot of bridge battles. Most times I've noticed it's been a clog at the bridges, and this time I like that there's a lot of open fronts. Even though sometimes it might not have been a lot of players, there's at least fronts you could get to that wasn't the same bridge for day after day.
Yeah, and I think another one of the secondary reasons I would say is that like there are times when we do see, like I say, like we watched a war on pretty much on like a daily basis. Like at least like every couple of hours we will sort of see what's like happening, and like one of the patterns that we see too is sometimes something big is trying to like a group of players are trying to do something big. They are trying to send in like 50 to like 100 players. This might happen on like a Warden weekend. It might happen with like a naval invasion. But if there's no room to do that, then that huge operation will basically become like bottleneck in a single region, probably at like a bridge fight, and you'll never get something like a naval landing that involves 100 players. It'll just get stopped right in its tracks, and you won't have this room to breathe in the world, right? So this is another one of those things that, you know, again, I don't get like I totally understand. I totally understand from the player perspective why they see it as a problem, and I don't like hold it against anyone. But it's just one of those things where I wish we can reconcile the developer problem with the user problem, and that's something that we're working on, right? Like we want to reconcile that, so then it's not frustrating for players, and then it's not frustrating for us, right?
All right. Well, K-Bear, if you had nothing else for us here.
Nothing else, but thank you for letting me talk.
No, thank you. It was a good question. I think a lot of people's minds. Thank you for asking it. Appreciate it. Have a good one.
No problem. Thanks.
All right. Does anyone see liquid? There he is. Okay. Again, there's a lot. I think this is the record number of people we have most in the call in the lounge at least. So I might lose some names here. But returning guest is Liquid Popsicle from the 128th Artillery Regiment. Welcome back to the show. Welcome back to Zero Dark PressCorps.
Hello. How is everyone tonight?
Good.
I
It's
like
been a
your
while.
profile picture.
I am.
It's 02.
Yeah, it's 02.
From
Darling in the Franks.
All right.
What
Well,
is
that was your
that?
question. Thank you so much for calling in.
No, I'd really like to know what you guys think about the current suppression system, and like, because I know your goals in adding it was to, I guess, slow down combat, make things more tactical, if that makes sense. But to be honest, I don't know if you guys have seen this, but pretty much all of the time that I spend on the front line, I never ever have the suppression system actually affect me in any way, at least noticeably. Even with a little indicator in the bottom, I don't really notice that much of a difference when I'm firing. And it pushes me towards this. I really wish the suppression system was much harsher, because as of right now, you know, the really cool tactical stuff that we want to see with like LMGs laying down suppressive fire to keep you from getting shot back at, and using smokes and stuff to block line of sight. It isn't being done, and I think that comes more down towards the current frontline meta than anything else, than the expensive and low count smoke crates that we have.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. But how do you feel about cover in general?
I do love cover. The cover system, to me, it doesn't really seem like cover so much as it seems like weapon bracing, which makes a lot of sense. That feels very, very, very nice. I love being able to sit up behind sandbags and feel like I've got my gun propped up on the sandbags and shoot much more accurately. It just comes down to the whole suppression doesn't feel like it's doing anything. And I'd also love to see like an intense visual effect. If you get heavily suppressed, like if you've got an HMG spraying in your general direction, to where the outer ring of your field of vision blurs, and the only thing you can see clearly is what you can see at night.
Sort of like Postscriptum or Hell Let Loose?
Yeah, kind of like that.
Yes. I think when we first conceived this system, we wanted to really push into it so that it was basically suicide to not be in cover, because that's sort of what we imagine when we think about like World War II combat and tact. But when we first implemented it, were you there for those initial tests, like the combat tests on the dev branch?
I was not, sadly. I was busy at the time.
We did a whole bunch of runs where it was just like 10v10, 5v5, just like behind cover, trying to kill each other at max range, and we ended up dialing down on, or we changed a whole bunch of numbers, but the reason why was because for the first iteration we really just wanted to try something that didn't feel too different from what people were used to. We just kind of wanted to nudge people in a direction, and I think we succeeded there because, like you said, I think cover works really great, and we definitely see people using cover now a lot more. But I agree completely that suppression could use a lot more, like a little bit more of a nudge to make it more of a tactical consideration. I think at this point I only use it like when I get shot at and my shield starts turning red. I use that as an indicator that like I just need to that I'm just being shot at. Not that I'm worried that my cover is going to break or that my accuracy is falling.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And another thing that I'd like to point out, smoke grenades. Obscenely useful. It's so much fun to, if you actually have smoke grenades on the front line, to grab them. But they don't get used, and I think that's because there are rarely, if ever, any smoke grenades on the front line because they cost so much to make. They only come 10 per crate, and they take so long to pull out. I feel like if smoke grenades were this really, really easy thing to get, you'd see smoke on the front line, and you'd see people saying, alright, everybody throw smoke, we'll do a charge under the smoke. That's the kind of tactical play that... And I feel like when a lot of people complain about the combat in Foxhole not feeling entertaining, it isn't necessarily because of the combat system itself. I feel like it comes down more towards the fact that people just aren't working together as much as they should be. It should be a group effort, everyone saying, alright, we're going to do this one big thing as a group, and we're going to use all of these cool tools that no other game really offers us to do it. That's the entertainment value of Foxhole, and I feel like that's what should really be pushed for. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. As a artillery expert, how do you feel about the smoke artillery? Same thing?
The smoke shells, in all honesty, they're really hard to justify. Because with the lack of communication between front line and the actual artillery in the back, just because of the way the in-game communication system works right now, it's really hard to coordinate anything, not to mention the fact that you have to unload all of the standard shells that you have in the gun if you want to switch to smoke. Otherwise, smoke is absolutely amazing. There have been times like when we set up batteries in Abandoned Ward. I'm sure you know the hill that the Colonials like to sit on and shoot any of the wardens that get brave enough to try and push outside of Ward on that bridge. We laid down a very nice and thick smoke screen with our 4 guns and a firing pattern, and just kept that hill blanketed in smoke, and they couldn't shoot from it because they couldn't see. And it was brilliant. Nice. It let our guys push out across that bridge and actually take some ground. It plays brilliantly when it gets used right. It's just the incentive isn't there. That's the only issue I have with it.
Watch
I
next
know
war. Oh, go ahead.
I know one time I do believe you're talking about like the hill that's on that footbridge, right?
Not the footbridge.
Oh.
The stone bridge directly outside of Abandoned Ward. The one that when the Wardens have Abandoned Ward and the Colonials have whatever it is, the relic base.
I was on that hill, kind of Colonial, on the by the footbridge, and I don't know what it was, but the Wardens had an artillery battery, and they were just popping smokes all over that hill. And we kept getting terrified because I think it was like 2 guns. One was firing normals, one was firing smoke. So whenever we heard it, we didn't know what it was, and all of a sudden it was a smoke. And people were running away, being like, "There's artillery." People were like, "It's smoke. Don't worry about it." We had vehicles rolling through. There were mines, and they didn't know whether to fear the mines more or to fear the howitzers more. And it was chaos. And eventually we just said, "Armor, move back. You can't be used here." And we just started getting picked off by snipers. And I was like, "Wait, so smoke shells can kill you?"
And that's another thing. Gas was a little much. I will completely and totally say that. It just took over the meta. There was absolutely no instance where anything was better to use than gas apart from, hey, I want to actually destroy this structure. Everywhere else, against vehicles, against structures, most instances, against infantry, gas absolutely dominated. I would like to see other shell types as well for howitzers, namely illumination rounds, which
don't we have those already?
Really, really cool. They have them for mortars.
Oh, okay.
But what I really want to see is all of these different artillery types, instead of trying to mark them down and define them by what shells they give them all the different shell types and let their defining features be how mobile they are and how much range they have and how long it takes to fire them and preparation and all that.
I feel like a howitzer illumination shell would be pretty cool.
Because, yeah, and mortar smoke as well. Mortar smoke would be extremely useful.
I've actually wanted to see that before because I know of a lot of times, what was it? I think it was War 50. I was Colonial. We were pushing out Lich Ranch. and there was a bunch of wardens, and they had this little mortar, and it was so hard to take because they were defending it so perfectly, and they were just peppering us. And they kept trying to like send guys at us, but we were entrenched, and we were shooting them because we could see them. And I was like, if those mortars could range in our entire area as smokes, how much would that have changed the battle?
So I have a question.
See, mortars are one of those things where you're on the front line and you know what's going on when you use them. If you were to give mortars the ability to load smoke shells, people would 100% take those.
You mean howitzers?
No, mortars.
No,
Give mortars smoke shells.
Oh,
if mortars had smoke shells,
I get confused
and
between
you could
what
drop
has and
smoke
what doesn't have.
at about 45 meters in front of you, right? It's the same instance of people wanting to have smoke grenades in the rifle grenade launcher. It gives you just so much more tactical ability to say, all right, I can block off visibility for these guys that I can openly communicate with them because I am right here.
Mark had a question. Real quick, sorry. Mark had a question. Then we'll go to cars.
Yeah, my question is, in a dream future of the game, if there was tons of new content around artillery that is added to the game, what would you want to see? Like if there was, just a completely crazy future where there are like 10 types of artillery, what is it that you would want to see?
I think the things that I want to see most are tiering of different calibers and barrel lengths of artillery, because it's more than just, you have big gun, little gun, handheld gun, right? There are all these different calibers of mortars. In fact, we've been playing a lot of Postscriptum recently. They have 4-inch mortars, these big bad boys that are about the same size as regular artillery, right? And they drop these massive payloads that they're about the same, explosion radius. And, they don't have as much range, but they're man-portable. And then you have, like, the American Long Tom, this 155 millimeter, super big artillery piece, that what they'd have to do with it is they'd dig it in, and then they'd shoot, like, 10 kilometers away with it, and give heavy fire support to their infantry. And what I'd really like to see for the artillery game in Foxhole is to get this, you have all of these different tools that, namely you have like your short range, different calibers for different explosion, depending on how much damage you want to do determines how mobile you are. And then you have about your mid range, which is like your wheeled AT guns and things like the FA that are pulled around with trucks. And then you have the big boys, right? And these would be your really heavy artillery that takes the crane to move around and takes a while to get set up, but once you're dug in, you can lay down some heavy fire support. It's just those 3 separate tiers are what I want to see. And it just comes down to this balance of, do I want range and firepower, or do I want mobility and adaptability?
True. Well, I have a question for you, Liquid Popsicle. How do you feel about the storm cannon?
Sorry,
honestly,
cars, did you get your question in?
I just asked it.
Oh, sorry.
For me, the storm cannon, I can't say I particularly like it. I do. It's very much fun to sit back and be the off-map artillery and just rain hell upon anyone and everyone that you can look at. But the only thing with the storm cannon is that it is so stationary, takes so long to build, takes so much effort to build, that you can't justify it when all it takes is 5 guys getting up at 2 a.m. every night, and you don't know exactly when they're going to come with their FA and their tanks, and they just start attacking your base in a group larger than you can manage to keep on 24 hours. And because of how easy it is to undo work in Foxhole, and that goes for more than just buildings. It's really easy to kill FA with mortars. It's really easy to kill tanks if you're not in the right spot. And I understand why that is, but with a storm cannon, you can't move it around and you can't hide it. And the second that you start losing your grip on it, it's over. Because they will bear down on it and they will kill it. And that goes for every single storm cannon in the game. I've seen it. time and time again, that the second we find out where it is, or they find out where ours is, they start attacking it relentlessly, and it will eventually fall.
Loads shotgun with malicious intent.
So
it
actually,
just comes down to a, it's still not worth the investment. It doesn't have enough of an impact.
That's an
because without the frontline infantry there doing their work, you have no influence on the battlefield with artillery. And we have killed numerous town halls just because we felt like it, and they get rebuilt within 10 minutes.
That's an interesting take because it sounds like the storm cannon is fulfilling its purpose of being a big target, a big objective in the region for the opposing team to attack and to target and hit, but it's not fulfilling the owner's intention, their goal of actually being able to use it effectively.
It's a giant target that says "attack me," and to the owners, it's like, well, this sucks. To the attackers, it's like, ooh.
Yep, that's exactly what it is. And I understand why it's that way. It makes sense. It's just, it's not pleasant to use.
Liquid,
unless you and I've said this multiple times, and I'll make this very clear. The situation that we had when we had the storm cannon in Callahan's Pass and pushed into Deadlands with it, that was ideal conditions that is very, very difficult to replicate, and most of that is based upon luck.
Liquid, I got your solution right here. What we need to do is make the storm cannon a weather machine.
Mobile.
Literally a storm cannon. So when you fire it into a region, the entire region descends into fog. It's like the world's largest smoke shell. Right?
It's like a nuke.
I would be very happy if the storm cannon.
And you can't rebuild that town if it gets fired at.
Yeah. No, but yeah.
Storm cannon smoke shells would be pretty sweet.
Just imagine like a whole town descending into smoke for 5 minutes, which would be horribly unbalanced.
Dead harvest. Dead harvest. Oh shit.
Oh yeah, zombie shell.
Zombie shell.
Plague shell. Plague shell.
The biggest
you know how
they
used to throw dead bodies with plague over the walls? Just do that.
Yes. Load the zombies into the cannon.
Yeah. Well, so Liquid, last thing here before we move on to the next caller. What were you going to say?
I feel like people overestimate artillery. And this is another thing that I wanted to say. My ideal artillery scenario, I would love to see, and this is a huge balancing factor in artillery, that when enemy artillery shoots at your shit, an icon pops up on the map, whether they are inside the watchtower range or not, where they are shooting from.
Ooh, like an area ping, because the sound is so
or even
like,
just like a red line on the map that shows the arc of where it's traveled, right? Even just knowing the direction it came from will make it so much nicer to deal with artillery.
Even so, no watchtowers at play, no radios at play here whatsoever. It's just that automatically on the map, you immediately know where the fire support is firing from.
Well, it'd be like a general.
It makes more sense.
I mean, it's loud. It's a loud cannon. If it shoots over like a small hill, it's like I'm pretty sure it's to our right.
Would it be a better solution for the sound cues to be improved and the sound direction to be improved, so that you can just figure that out audibly, as opposed to a visual gimme?
And I'm not saying it has to be like a
sure, yeah, we're spitballing.
Here's the enemy, right? But being able to identify where the enemy artillery is coming from would really, really balance out artillery and allow it to be this powerful weapon that will be extremely fun to use, as long as you do it right and you defend yourself. Because it's no fun to be sitting at your town hall and then all of a sudden it starts exploding because there's an FA within 150 meters of it, but you have no idea where it is. And you won't be able to find it in time. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's tricky. It's very tricky indeed. All right, well, Liquid, thank you so much for your time. Duly appreciate it, as always. Great questions, great insight into just one aspect of the game. It's amazing how deep some of this stuff goes. But Liquid, we'll catch you around next time.
Take care.
See ya. All right, we're chugging along here. Up next, Lek joining us once more here to Zero Dark PressCorps. Lek, what do you got for us here tonight?
Howdy, Mr. Geoffrey. It is I, Lek. It's been a while, I think. I think I missed out on your last broadcasting. And I've been out of town for this war, so don't exactly have many stories from the front line like we usually like to go over. But I've got some things I'd like to bring up anyway. You and I remember that conversation you and I had a couple days ago? I'd like to raise it to your guests here.
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
So, Mr. Foot of the Mark variety and Mr. Flying of the Crazy variety, I would like to propose this idea to you. As you know, people don't like the efficiency system, and for good reason. It's perfectly honestly speaking a fucking pain in the ass. I hate you for it. And I'm going to make the case to you that it is not just a subjectively bad system. Even what it sets out to do is a bad thing in and of itself. I believe, it is my firm belief, that forcing every war to be long because of the efficiency system makes every war less memorable, especially the good long wars. I would like to hear your response to this idea.
If I may direct it first a little bit, is why is the efficient... Let's restate again, because we have a lot of new viewers. Thank you so much for tuning in. What is the purpose of the efficiency system? What is the stated reason for it? I think we'll start there.
Yeah. So there's always this trade-off between stability. I was talking about this a little earlier, but there's always this trade-off between stagnant and linear wars versus like unstable wars. But what we find is that you need to find a balance, and a part of the balance there is that if the expectation is that, like, all this work that I'm putting into a bunker base, it could all be gone in one day. I'm starting this on the second day of the war, and the whole war can be over like tomorrow. And even though I'm planning out to build a bunker base, I'm planning out all of like my concrete, I'm planning out all of this stuff. Your investment into the war is always going to be flaky if there isn't some kind of stability there, that on the average makes it so that you can rely on the fact that what you're doing right now is going to persist to some degree, right? And I agree with your point. I actually agree 100% with your point that if it plays out the same way every time, then it's not special. I agree with that, and I'll be the first to say, I was actually talking to Max about this today. Like, we're gonna make changes there, right? And it's a tough like balancing act, because right now what's there, it's a stand-in to try to get some of that balance, because we always see things on the opposite end of the spectrum. When back when there wasn't efficiency, we would always hear problems, like people would be screaming at us about the fact that there's no point in playing this war, it's just going to end the next day, like these like rushes are too cheap. I wake up the next day, there's a huge like night swing, and it didn't matter, everything that I didn't matter because the night swing like screwed it over. A lot of the instability problems, which I think we haven't seen in a long time, a lot of that stuff is resolved. But Foxhole is such a complicated game, and you guys all know, you guys have been with us for so long. You know that when you fix one thing, it makes something else worse usually, right? And we do know that even though we fix some of these things, some of these other things are worse. But really, it's a continuum, and I think that we've come to accept that it's less of a black and white, this is going to be fixed. It's more of a continuum of like, okay, well, here's the problem from yesterday, we fixed that problem yesterday, and then now there's a problem now, we're going to fix this one, and then tomorrow there's going to be a new problem. Hopefully over time, on that continuum, things are going to get better over a long period of time on the average. But it's still a continuum. Even after 1.0, that's still going to happen. There's still going to be problems. We're still going to work on it. And that's sort of how I feel on that topic. And I think I just want to make it clear that that's still a work in progress thing, and we're not 100% happy with the way it works.
So then,
Now,
go ahead.
I understand your point about it not being a black and white situation about the problems that were there before and being replaced by the problems now. And it is my firm belief that it wouldn't be as simple as just removing efficiency. Like you said, there were those problems about people investing time without the guarantee that it would be there the next day. But as someone that has spent far too much time in the war previous to this one, I can say it is much more painful to have to invest so much extra effort for no fucking reason into it. And the guarantee that it's still there isn't guaranteed, because the second someone finds out that you have a bunker complex, they'll destroy it anyway. It's not relative to where it is on the map, but relative to how much the enemy want to destroy. And while I do understand it's not as simple as removing efficiency, I think there is a better, more organic solution that you could come up with in order to keep the permanence and the stability without completely sabotaging and causing players to have to just want to rip their hair and eyes out, frankly, because of having to make 20 deliveries of upgrade parts because you can't just invest because it's on low efficiency all the time and having to sit around for 12 hours waiting for efficiency to reset. It's madness. But I'm sure you already know that opinion is been taken by a lot of the community, and I hope that you come up with a better solution later down the line. But that was only a small part of what I want to ask today. I also have a proposition completely unrelated to the prior inquiry. The proposition I would like to make is it's not what you think it is, sir. It is a smaller idea, but it's related to logi, and not delivery logi, but rather the act of mining. And now, I've been playing a game as of recently called Deep Rock Galactic. It is a very fun, very refined game where you descend into a cave system and have to mine and make sure that you have enough supplies to kill waves of enemies while digging out resources and completing objectives. And it is such a fascinating idea to me in regards to making this resource collection very entertaining by giving it a time limit, by giving it a challenge, similar to the heists you might see in Grand Theft Auto 5 or Payday 2. And I was thinking, what are your thoughts on an idea such as abandoned mine shafts that appear randomly throughout the world and are set on a delay where you can build an entrance to them, but once you do, you will only have a certain amount of time to get in, mine out certain resources, use special equipment such as possibly dynamite or special resource collection bins, maybe wheelbarrows. I know that's a bit of a throwback, but I want to know what you think of like a special, not necessarily gamified, but like a more risk-reward type timed event where there's a deadline and you have to be efficient about it in terms of mining. What are your thoughts on something of that nature?
Do you want to take this? Do you want to take this one, Max? Because I know you're heavily invested into mining.
I'm heavily invested into mining. I like. I think I'd love to see the entire early stages of the logistics chain expanded on, but I think we have to keep our focus on. I think it's interesting you mentioned Deep Rock Galactic. At least I played a little bit of that, so I know what you're talking about. But I think what you're getting at is that basically you want to see a more engaging part of the game. But I guess where I would turn that on you is, what are you mining for in Deep Rock Galactic, right? Like
minerals, eggs, salvaging old equipment, and like that was lost by previous crews.
I think what he means, or maybe, but I think he means, what is the purpose of doing all that?
Purpose is customization, upgrading your equipment, and the like. The rewards you get are experience, as well as credits, which can be spent on customization or upgrading your tools, which help you do better in future, more dangerous runs.
So would you say that it makes sense that a part of the enjoyment that comes from that mining, that from a part of the engagement that you're feeling when you pick up that egg or the minerals, is that satisfaction of knowing it's going to go towards something that you can. That's a leading question, so I'm just going to answer it. I just feel like when we look at Foxhole, a big part of the enjoyment comes from that delivery to the front, that creation of equipment, and maybe we don't have enough customization there. But with the implementation of the mass production factory and the vehicle crates, we're trying to increase that breadth so that when you are mining, you'll feel a little bit more excited, a little bit more like you're making headway.
I will say, that's more so like a little cherry on top rather than the reason I enjoy the game. The reason I enjoy the game is the ability to, over time, by taking on more difficult assignments, the ability to unlock more difficult assignments. Like there's a special thing that you can do which unlocks another level of difficulty, Hazard 5, and you have to do 4 missions or 5 missions on Hazard 4, the predecessor level of difficulty. As well as there's like end game content where you have to stay in the mine for longer. Your ammo and minerals carry over from mission to mission, and it takes a lot longer to do. And the reason I enjoy the game isn't necessarily the cherry on top, but rather the meat and potatoes, the main course. It's the fact that the gameplay, the gunplay, and the mining are very engaging and very much carry a sense of threat where you have to do it quickly and efficiently, or you'll get overrun, run out of ammo. It's very much a war of attrition, where you can't exactly replicate the mass hordes of bugs trying to murder you in the caves. I mean, I guess you could, but I don't know if that would be everyone's cup of tea in Foxhole when they might look for a more relaxing experience. I just think that a timed-based system, or some kind of making sure that you're efficient with the materials you go in, possibly like consumables such as dynamite or pneumatic drills or something of that nature where it's limited usage, but you need a certain amount of equipment to make sure you're doing it right. But if you bring too much equipment, you might be weighed down and it might make your overall efficiency lower. And I think that could be a lot of fun. Not necessarily the reward at the end, but making the actual meat and potatoes of the natural primary gameplay loop much more engaging.
Yeah, and I think that is something, like, maybe not that exact implementation, but I think that we are working on making the mining game more engaging in general, both in the moment-to-moment gameplay and also in the reward loop for doing that. And I think in the summer update, you'll know what I'm talking about. There are some things in the works there.
Pardon? Could you just repeat that? I didn't hear the ending.
Which part? So I said that we're improving both the moment-to-moment gameplay and the reward system for the miners in the summer update. That's something that we're working on.
But it will never be as exciting as Deep Rock Galactic.
Of course not. I don't expect it to be. That's not the point of Foxhole. I'd be a madman if I accused you of going low or not living up to the potential when I'm comparing completely different genres of games. One, an MMO about launching people on tops of glitching out trucks and driving to the front line in a bus blaring music, versus getting down and dirty with some bugs.
Yeah, that brings up.
Go ahead. I'm a madman, but I'm an educated madman.
Raz, go ahead.
I feel like the bus thing was a bit of a personal attack, if I do say.
Personal? I'm referring to Mr. Chaz, you know.
Yes, I know. Me and Frontline Tours, we've rivaled for customers before.
I'm sorry, but Frontline is much better than you will ever be.
Okay, well, you know what? He may play all the good
personal
pop,
but I got the good Sabaton and the good battle music. You know, I get the troops psyched up. I give him, the peanuts. He doesn't have snacks on his bus.
Is there a video of Frontline Tours in action?
I will say that is hearsay. He has snacks.
In
Have
hearsay?
you seen the man?
Have you
He
even
is
heard
a
him
snack.
speak? You know, he's just silent. I've never heard that man speak. I at least interact with my passengers.
Interaction for the worse, my friend.
I prepare those young boys for their imminent deaths.
Young boys, you're taking children to the front? I knew it. You're just a heretic.
Community
You're taking
challenge.
my children.
Community challenge. I will give someone all my commands, meaning 4. I will give them all my commands if they make a new player tutorial. Like they greet a new, like this is their first time in the game, and instead of the usual, hey, press X to go prone, instead of that usual stuff, disguise a whole tutorial spiel you would give as a bus tour.
Oh no!
So it's like, and on your left is a factory, and here you can make all kinds of moving along, and then it just like becomes a whole like a Hollywood tours kind of thing.
And on your right, you'll see the dumbasses that are frontlining. Don't join them. Go on the flat. Don't be an
I
idiot
need
that
recording
loses
software.
your life to the machine.
OBS.
You're better than that, Sonny.
No, but I think.
I mean,
go ahead.
I mean, the ultimate version of a tutorial is just a bunch of veteran players, basically like driving a truck or a bus, a whole bunch of new players up to the front, and then they can see it kind of like firsthand.
Gets immediately imploded by a howitzer shell, and that, kids, is why you don't drive busloads of people directly into the front line.
I've always envisioned that the perfect tutorial would be a bunch of veteran players stuffing a bunch of new players into a truck and or into a train and then locking it, sending.
God. Wait, where are we going, Sarge? Trial by fire. Just enter the warden lines, like, they stop the train, they open up the doors, it's like, are these a bunch of collies? I don't know, they don't have guns.
All right, I think we'll have to end it there, but Lek, thank you so much. Thank you so much for your call. I know we could go on for hours. I know we could.
I give to the war effort my body.
I think that was the best place to end that call. But in any case, like as always in adventure, coming up next year, though, here on Zero Dark PressCorps is 82DK's Canadian Cowboy. Is there, real quick, is there anyone else from 82DK up top that isn't wearing the tags by any chance that I can drag in?
I'm pretty sure there isn't. I'm pretty sure I'm the only one.
Okay, that's fine. But yeah, Canadian Cowboy, thank you so much.
Battlefield.
Yeah. Thank you so much for joining us. What'd you have for us here tonight?
Okay, I just got a quick question. When you getting modified tags? I want to know this. I just want my Stug, man.
I'm sorry, getting what?
The Sturmgeschütz.
Oh.
Yes. I just want a Stug. Come on now.
Yeah, Mark, when are you going to please all the wereaboos out there?
I need my Sherman.
Yeah, man.
Franco-Germanic
Also,
Warden Group. Go ahead.
Another question was, why is there certain areas and certain regions where the game will freeze for people and just cause us to drive off cliffs and stuff? I'm very confused by that.
Oh, I know this one. That's the border. So you remember a while back, before well, I guess during the Hex revamp, you used to be able to walk up to the border, and it was just like a giant white, and you could see in, and it was clearly just a big grass field. There was nothing really there. Now, when you walk up to a border, it actually shows you the next region, right? The problem that we have, that we never really got around to fixing, is that when you get in range of that next region, it streams in all at once. And so like your computer is chugging, loading up the next region. So you'll find that when you're approaching a border. No, it's not
well, I've had that on front lines. I'd be driving towards a bunker base with an APC. That would happen. I'd just keep on driving through their front line, blowing up on mines.
Oh, I'm not sure then.
Yeah, we have to look at that problem specifically. But I think one thing to look forward to is we're upgrading the Unreal Engine, as I discussed on the stream. And some of the things we're finding is that you may see some improvement in client performance. So your frame rate might be improved. It's not something that might happen for everyone, but we're hoping that this next update will see some performance improvements on the client. And what's even more exciting is in the future, the server side, there's a bunch of really good new tools that the upgrade is going to provide that will hopefully make that better. But in terms of your specific situation, if it's happening frequently, make sure you file a bug, and we definitely want to look into that specific issue.
Alright, yeah. I'm just on every couple regions it'll happen every now and again, but I know other people, some Anzac players were doing it, so I don't know if it's like ping related and then computer related or something, but yeah.
Alright,
But
well.
yeah, how's your day?
You know what? It's going great. I think that was more directed towards Mark.
Oh no, I'm directing it towards all of you.
Jeffrey
just
is
wondering.
stealing the spotlight as usual.
As usual. Old me.
Yeah, that's basically it. I'm still waiting. Hopefully someday in the future they will be able to modify vehicles because I want to really badly.
Ah, yes. Get a casemate so I can just roll up in my tank with an actual traversable turret, just to bop you in the side as you're trying to turn.
Well, I already solo tank, so it wouldn't really affect me much. Drove 8 regions to bite from Moors. Drove from Moors to bite with a truck and then endless to a tank to get tanks. Don't affect me much.
Alright, well, CanadianCowboy, I'm
see
doing well, and I hope you do well too, and I hope the 82DK. I wish them the best of luck as I do all the outfits and regiments out there.
I hope they lose their bayonets.
Yeah. Alright, have a good one. Thank you so much for calling in.
I will.
Alright, coming up next from the 22 ACR, 22nd Armored Cavalry Regiment, is SlushE and Rampage. I believe Rampage is the leader of the 22 ACR. Gentlemen, how are you this evening? Welcome to Zero Dark PressCorps.
I'm great. Thank you for having us on. Long-time listener, first-time caller.
Yeah, I was about to say it. I think we might have had Rampage, but I don't think I recognize you, SlushE.
Nope, I had the backlines. Yeah, but if I've been on here, it's been a long time. I'll say that. I used to do a couple press releases back when you still had clan press releases, so or clan written press releases, I should say.
Right. All right, well, SlushE, would you have anything for us here tonight?
I do. I kind of wanted to weigh in the big one that, I guess it's the benefit of going later in the list of all the callers was the landings, because I find myself to be quite the enthusiast of water invasions and naval invasions.
Has the 22 ACR done any of them?
We did 2 last war, back to back one day, or I guess it was a 2-day spread. We took back all of Fisherman's with the help of some of the other clans. CSO was there, Som. But yeah, so we did that one, and then very shortly after that on Monday, we invaded into Orbreaker, and we were there all night, fighting away. I would say the naval invasion we're probably best known for would be the Battle of Weathering Halls in World Conquest 45. We navally invaded Weathered and took Weathering Halls with a few hours.
I know that one. I wasn't there, but I remember looking on the map and I was like, who naval invaded that place? 'Cause that was my 45 was my first war, and I was just like, why?
The flag that flew over that one was Santa SlushE. Yeah, that was Christmas, yeah.
Yeah, because I got Foxhole on the Christmas sale, and I came in, and I mean, like, I met someone who I wish I wouldn't have met, and I joined in an area I wish I hadn't joined. But anywho, I saw that, and I was like, oh, there's so much cool stuff in this game. I hope it could be a naval invasion. I saw one, and I was like, well, now I wish I was on the other side of the map, because even today, most of the fighting I do is on the Western Front. I almost never do anything in the East. I don't know why. I just always gravitate towards the West.
Is that because the fights happen to be in the West, or is that just coincidence?
I don't know. Usually recently I've just been hitting up the center. Although, like I said, I was kind of in a medical hospital for all of 52. But, I don't know. Usually it's always center or west for me. I've never really gravitated towards the east. So much stuff. I drove by there once with a friend of mine. I was like, there's so much cool stuff over here.
All right, and I think SlushE had a couple of questions regarding it.
Yeah, I mean, so if you look into kind of how naval landings work, the landing ship has a lot of potential, and I guess the one drawback, because my main focus in the game has always been Logi, so my one drawback is dumping a bunch of stuff into that landing ship and then watching it go pop 30 seconds later because an APC got behind it. And there's no way to get those resources out if you wind up having a successful landing. Like, if you land and everything goes perfect, you want to be able to set up some kind of land base. Well, you put a bunch of supplies in there, you put too many supplies, and it kind of limits you. So I don't know if there's a way to maybe incorporate similar aspects of the squad stockpile where you can have some crates as well.
Or just a storage capacity where you could put crates in and pull them out quickly.
Yeah.
You mean in the landing ship?
Yes.
Right.
So not yeah, you probably get it.
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah. Mark, we need to come back to naval stuff.
Yeah.
Could you clear your schedule?
So this is like the discipline thing, man. Like, okay, so like we're trying to. It's what I was talking about like earlier. When you have all these things that you're juggling and you're trying to move these huge features through, it's so easy to be sidetracked, and it happens to us all the time because we'll get so excited about something. And for example, this week when we saw the naval landing, that it was probably one of the biggest ones. Like, I have a video, like a short video of it somewhere, but it's like. It was one of the biggest ones, and we saw it, and we were all so excited, and we wanted to stop everything, and everybody on the Clapfoot Discord started talking about things like battleships and all this crazy stuff, and then we almost have to be like, hey, guys, let's stop talking about this. We got to get back to work. There's more things we're working on right now. We got to work on Logi and all this stuff. But trust me, like, it's so we're so excited about it, and I think that even if water is not a huge focus in the next couple of months, which, to be honest, it's not. I think that at some point in the future, we're gonna do something huge with it. Like, I think there's too much excitement on the team, and there's too much excitement among you guys, and we're seeing all this cool stuff. Like, just being right here on this podcast and hearing all you guys being super excited about this, like, it's gonna be impossible almost for us to not have this to be a huge part of the future of the game, right?
Submarine.
I will say that the first thing that needs to happen for a naval revamp, in my opinion, of course, first thing that needs to happen is ship-to-ship combat. If that gets implemented, then you've got a true naval game, because then everyone's going to want to outpace each other to gain control of the waters.
Can you imagine gunfights on the decks of like an aircraft carrier or something?
Yeah,
just sitting there shooting at each other in the water.
Aircraft carrier is a whole other layer of warfare. It's a whole.
I'm just thinking a big platform is all I was thinking.
Yeah. But like good ship-to-ship combat where it's not reliant on where it's direct fire as opposed to reliant on what is essentially artillery, right? Gunboat artillery. That's what I'd be all about. And I think I had a suggestion where it was, what if you had a gun and you had direct fire, so you had the ability to, it's like you were having binoculars, so you can look beyond the usual range, but your periphery is now narrowed down to like 30 degrees, right? So it's like blackness. So you still need a spotter, but you can use direct fire. And so now then, and there's like shot delay, things you can calculate in there, things like turret speed, like your sight is always faster than your turret speed, like a tank, and all sorts of things. As long as I don't know, I think it's got to be ship-to-ship combat. If that gets perfected, then everything else will not fall into place, of course, because it's Foxhole. But it'll be a step in the right direction.
So there is one as like a pie in the sky idea. If there were like submarines in the future, this is my own like personal sort of like a request is that if there are depth charges, they have to be manually carried as a large item by a player and manually like thrown overboard. That's kind of my personal wish. If
With like a timer and everything. It'd be so great.
It's like Donkey Kong avoiding the barrels.
Launch people.
Bruh moment. I say no submarines. Midget subs.
Keanu Van Panzer was saying, typing that, yeah, what if you look? No, just turn the barges into direct fire weaponry. That means put a tank in a barge, allow the tank to fire. So then there you go, you got your glass cannon, easy.
Kaboom!
It's the ultimate solution. Well, in
no,
any case,
you can't just add a bunch of vehicles on barges and use them to fire. Ha ha! Glass cannon, go boom.
But SlushE Rampage, did you have anything else for us here?
Did you have something on partisans? Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, I did have. I have one small point about logistics, just because that's my big thing, and that was curiosity if there's going to be any change to reaching trail and Great March, because they kind of just turn into mush. Like, there's not a lot of draw, especially for B-mats. I mean, you might want to go there for components, but as far as B-mats, like, you don't want to go there and get the salvage, because now you're going to drive 20 minutes, even if it's on a flatbed for 5,000. Just, there's not that draw, so I didn't know if there's a way where that was going to be implemented a little bit more into Logi. But, you know, that was just kind of something I wanted to put in thoughts, and it might already be out there in some of the upcoming updates. But the thing that I wanted to cover, that way we're not talking about a bunch of different things, was Partisans seems to have died a little bit. Like, you can still do, like, catching vehicles, right? You can catch a truck when it's coming across borders and stuff like that. But some of that backline, like, start of invasions, like, you can't poke at a town without everybody on the team knowing exactly where you're at, because it lights up that structure.
Oh, look, there's a message saying,
and there's the message
under attack.
Right, so now you look right there, and you look right at the structure, because the structure's also a different color, you know, it's that orangish color. So I didn't know if there's a way where that could be narrowed down to, like, region only, so the regions still are required to communicate with each other, like, hey, we're being invaded here, or hey, there's, you know, this going on, instead of everybody getting a broadcast. And I think that might play a little bit into what you guys were talking real early on about with, like, the intelligence and kind of the communication aspects. So I was just kind of curious what your thoughts on that side of that were to be.
Yeah, so like I feel like partisans it's really difficult, because it's one of the things where if you buff partisans too much, then you start to see certain things happen in the game that a lot of players would feel are deemed not fair. And it's not just the Logi players, that's one thing, but there are other things that have happened in the past, like some fort being, back when there were forts, some fort being taken at a location.
Hello.
Oh, hello.
I don't know what that was.
It was Chad. He hopped in, just yelled hello, and popped out.
All right.
How strange.
But his profile's a spooky ghost, so you know.
Mark, so I'm so sorry, Mark, but continue.
No, it's no problem. It's just one of those things that is hard to balance. Like, obviously, partisans is a huge part of the game, and basically, it's one of the unique things in Foxhole, the fact that there is a supply line that you have to worry about, and you can, like, disrupt the supply line is huge, right? But balancing that against making sure that these things that players tend to feel are cheap or are like unearned is where that hard part lies, right? I don't know, Max, if you have any thoughts on this.
I know that's going to be a contentious, like Petrin mentioned in the chat. Like, I don't know that partisans are gone. They're definitely painful, but I will say, from the community management perspective of it, there is definitely an asymmetrical feedback loop that we get from partisans, in that partisans, when you kill them, I learned this in the FCL, so this is relatively fresh. That when you kill a partisan, a lot of people just feel like, you know, you didn't get anything from it. That there's no risk in sending partisans behind enemy lines to go kill trucks, which is not true. The reality is that when you kill a partisan, their effort is what you're killing. And this is something that we don't hear a lot of feedback about. We hear people saying that partisans are dead, and then we also hear logistics players saying partisans are too strong. And both are right. When a partisan kills a logistics player, it feels like the partisans are too strong because they just destroyed hours of your work. But as a logistics player, when you hop out of your truck and you get lucky and you kill him with a pistol, you may not have seen that the 6 or 7 failed attempts it took for him to try to get there, and then and then he accomplished nothing. Or maybe he got there and he doesn't have enough ammo to destroy your truck, and so he just sets it on fire and leaves. Like, a lot of the time, we're not sure exactly how effective they're being. And my feeling personally is I think that it's in a pretty okay place. I don't personally, when I'm playing in the live war, I don't feel like when I do partisan that I'm completely wrecking the enemy team, but neither do I feel totally useless. So
my
Go ahead,
personal
Mark.
feeling at purely as a player, so like not as a dev, is like I actually feel like this is gonna be controversial. A lot of people are gonna not like what I'm about to say, but I feel like partisans is actually what I find almost the funnest part of the Logi game.
I don't think that's controversial. A lot of people find it fun. I think the controversial part is how effective should they be.
Yeah, right. Is how effective should it be? Because like when I'm playing Logi, that's the part that is most interesting. Is trying to figure out how I can play it safe, how I can make it to the front, how I can make it to my destination without being hit, or if I'm driving along to the front, being able to like warn another player, or being able to help out another player that has been stopped by a partisan is really satisfying for me. Like seeing another player, if their truck was actually stopped, hopping out of my truck, using like an SMG to help out that player. Those little moments I personally find like super satisfying. But the part that I probably hate just as much as everyone else is if I lose like a few hours of work. I definitely hate that. So
yeah, one thing that I still haven't seen, at least personally. I'm sure maybe there's instances of this because 24/7 sandbox, but I'm surprised there aren't enough escorts. Like armored cars escorting the trucks. And I guess the next the counter to that is, well, who has the time for that? They should be out on the front line. Well, I don't know. That's your investment. If you don't want to spend the resources protecting said convoys. Of course, it's a whole other question. Is can they be effective against partisans? I don't know. That's where the details lie. But I don't know.
I mean, there was one time, I forget when and where it was, but I was on the front line, and there was a fob like really close to us because someone built it like way too far up. Well, I guess not too far up, but it was really close to where I was, and we were within shooting distance of the wardens. And I had seen a few armored cars rolling around, and the fob was running out, so we had like the shopping list, as you always see on the map. And I'm running back because I don't even remember why. I think I was trying to talk to someone. And all I see are 2 armored cars and just 4 trucks, and I watched them as they rolled up, and the armored cars immediately went in like a arrow formation and turned their guns towards the enemy. So the trucks had armor as they went in, unload their stuff, pulled out, and ran. And I was like, huh.
Yeah.
And none of it didn't have like, they weren't all part of like one clan. There was just like a convoy of trucks, and I guess they just found the ACs and was like, can you cover us?
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. If you're gonna invest all this time, invest a little bit more time and resources into having an armored car or something to bring you along.
Mind you, like I said, this was like right on the front line, so there wasn't partisans. It was just like, don't let us get sniped.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe that's weird for me. To me, my favorite part of the game, aside from doing PressCorps things, of course, is driving across 4 regions and just relaxing and transporting something. I mean it's essentially Euro Truck Simulator, except going back to that thing about in certain other games, context changes completely when you're playing Foxhole, which is I would never play Euro Truck Simulator. I don't find that appealing at all because I'm not doing anything. I'm just driving a truck. Whereas in Foxhole, I'm doing something more. I'm not just driving a truck. I'm supplying a war effort. I am a moving target for someone. And the context completely changes there. So I don't know. That's food for thought. SlushE, Rampage, did you have anything else for us? I think we got a few more calls. I'm not sure how long the devs can stay with us. We've been on for about 2 hours and 15. So thank you so much.
Yeah, I'll give it another 15, then I really should get up.
Yeah, I understand.
That about wraps it up for me.
Yep, same here.
All right, gentlemen.
Nice talking to you.
Yeah, absolutely. 22 ACR. Good luck out there, as I say to all the regiments. Thank you. All right, coming up next, we'll get through these as much as we can, is ISO's Death Dealers, as well as Sea Skeleton. Some cool names here. When they got a Z at the end, they mean business. Gentlemen, welcome to Zero Dark PressCorps. What is the ISO? What does that mean? What ISO?
Hey, Culver, you there, dude?
Hey, hello. Sorry, he just unmuted. Hi, welcome to Zero Dark PressCorps. What does ISO stand for?
Well,
Culver.
yeah, I can hear you. Yeah, well, it's an inside joke.
That is the smartest recruitment I have ever heard in my life. You want to know what ISO? You want to know what ISO stands for? It's an inside joke. Join to find out.
Darn, I guess I'll be adding a third tag to my name.
All right, then you know what? We'll keep that a secret. But gentlemen, what'd you have for us here tonight?
So yes, everybody add a tag to your name. Alright, so one of the things I noticed was basically like the glitches that kind of happen in the game. Like, I know you guys are like starting the war really like soon, but like for example, like when I drive a bike and my bike doesn't want to go over a bridge, or certain vehicles don't go over a bridge correctly, or one of the bigger glitches that I saw last war was where we had a really big base set up in Lynn and Mercy, and they used the blueprints to pretty much have our AT guns destroy each other and everything around the area, making it easy for battle tanks to actually breach into the base.
How recent was that? I thought we fixed that one.
So the blueprint actually...
I think that was War 50. What was this war? War 51?
We're in 53. We're going into 53.
Okay,
it was the last one. So it was 51. It happened in 50.
Okay, yeah. Didn't we literally fix that this patch, Mark?
Yeah, so that was fixed in War 52. And
Okay.
It was something that we spent a bunch of time on. So.
No, because we had that issue and it was so annoying. But like I was wondering, like I know you guys are hopping into this war so quickly. Do you guys ever sometimes say, "Let me take a slightly longer resistance phase break to fix some of those more minor glitches that are sometimes kind of maybe not like intentionally thrown under the carpet, but are forgotten sometimes?"
Yeah, no, actually, that's like super important point, and this is what I always talk about is that sometimes when we have these releases don't have a bunch of flashy features, it's because we're focusing more on fixing bugs and things of that sort. But like in terms of stopping the game in resistance phase, that doesn't really help us that much because our release cycles are about right now roughly once a month, sometimes longer, and like that's already sort of the fastest that we found we can go, right? And like this time in resistance would have to be a really long break that would be really tough for us to have. But I think that like I definitely hear what you're saying, and I definitely feel it's a personal thing for me. I really like to advocate fixing more bugs and spending entire like releases on actually not only fixing bugs but changing our code so that it can prevent more bugs in the future. Now, mind you, I do want to say something just as kind of a bit of a expectation setting thing is that we have like upgraded the engine in this upcoming update, and there's a lot of changes in the back end. We're putting more effort into testing, but it's sort of like I just want to be honest and say some of that might get a little bit worse before it gets much better. But a part of this is making sure that in the future we can move along without as many bugs. That was probably a really long answer to a very simple.
No, I mean that's a great answer. I mean, I come from a game designer background, so I definitely understand the chaoses of designing a game and trying to satisfy, the customer or the player base, but at the same time, it's kind of hard to get everything taken care of in one shot. I do understand what you guys, go through.
All right, gentlemen, did you have anything else for us here?
Yeah, so APCs, the last war, or ending war, we had a jumping APC. I think we must have launched 5 guys out of the APC. It's like a warden launch site. We need some magnetic boots for that.
Oh yeah.
I guess you could say it learned how to bunny hop.
No, but we were literally going over the water to swoop around the back of a base, and we literally all of our guys flew out of the vehicle.
Actually, I got a question. What kind of a game designer are you? What kind of things do you want?
Well, right now, the group I'm working with, we're working on a fear-based game, so it's kind of like a VR experience. So it's not exactly like Foxhole. I mean, I would love to work on something like this because it's a larger scale, long-term project. But I'm also a 3D artist, so I pretty much do anything 3D related or digital-based stuff, pretty much. But yeah, I mean, I love sci-fi based things, and things like Foxhole and stuff like that are kind of the things that I'm really into.
Super cool. That's cool.
All right, gentlemen, ISO, thank you so much for calling in. We duly appreciate it.
Thank you.
Hope to see more of you around. And share that game whenever it comes to fruition.
Yeah, it kind of got delayed with some family stuff, but it definitely will hopefully be out sooner than later.
Yeah, hearing a lot of that lately. Yeah, don't worry about it. I get it. All right, gentlemen, thank you so much.
Man, but thank you for having us on.
100%. Thank you. All right. You know what? Hold on. Foxy needs to come on next. He stayed up till 3:20 a.m. his time to come on the show, and I messed up by skipping him. Whenever I go to the call queue channel, I forget to scroll up, so I completely skip people. There we go. Here we go, Foxy. Here we go. There we go, Foxy. Sorry about that. Go ahead.
No. You don't get off the hook that easy. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I nitro boosted your server, and this is what I get. It's fine. I'm kidding. Don't worry.
I know, right? Foxy does have the honor of nitro boosting our server.
Can I just admit I have no clue what that means?
He pimped out our server.
You get perks. Don't worry, it's fine. I'm going to be really quick because there's other people. I've got. You guys. I love these calls, but you've got to do more of them because there's just too many questions. There's always too many questions. Okay, let's start from the top. Lek told me I've got to ask you about trains. So please add trains.
God damn it, Lek.
From beyond the grave.
I was under strict instructions. I want to ask you guys a question really quickly on friendly wrenching of vehicles. What is your stance on how quickly it's possible to do? And are there any plans in the future to maybe add a mechanic where you can delay that process? Because, theft of vehicles is a really big problem, and I understand the game principle behind everything belongs to everyone, etc. And sometimes it's really important that you can wrench something and get into it, but other times it is it's a real big problem for griefers. And I think we've all got a story about the APC or the tank that we built, and we just left it in a corner for 5 minutes, literally, while we had to run to a truck and go and get something for it and come back, and it's gone, and you can just never get that back.
Just don't park in the wrong neighborhood and they won't jack it.
It's true. But just really, what are your thoughts about that problem in general?
It's I don't know if this really answers your question, but what's really great, a while back we had to do a pass on some of the mod mails because we were getting way too many. And one of the main culprits was people sending mod mails that somebody took their truck or took their tank. And we implemented a really simple, I know you're aware of it, you can't unlock somebody else's vehicle if they've been in it for 5 minutes, or and for less than 5 minutes. And man, the number of mod mails we got for that, it's gone. It's like, so don't get me wrong. I admit it's still a problem, but at least now we just, all it is a matter of finding the appropriate amount of time that feels good, because players are at least now they're blaming. They're blaming each other, obviously, for stealing the vehicle, but it's also at least partly their own fault for leaving it for too long, and was joked about, leaving it in the wrong neighborhood. At least there's some semblance of limited ownership, but we can obviously tweak that up and down with how long that timer should be, and with things like the squad stockpile.
Yeah, that would be cool. Okay, thank you. Good answer. I've got a few more things to go into. What considerations do you guys give to the map configuration with regards to how it changes the dynamic of one hex when a neighbouring hex is disabled? And to be really specific about this, I'm talking about Ore Breaker. So in this next configuration, you'll see that Fisherman's below it is disabled. Now that basically renders it uninvadable. Because if you look at it, look at the map on Foxhole Global,
let me pull up a picture too for the stream.
Again, 30 seconds.
Yeah, when the delay allows you to. But if you look at Ore Breaker as it is, if the map was full, you've got really your only realistic naval route into that region is via Fisherman's. It's still got complete observation tower coverage, but at least you've got more than just one narrow channel in. But with this map configuration, if you want to get ships into Ore Breaker, you have to go in that route between Cofteri and Integrum. Now at its widest point, that is defendable by one guy with an RPG on a beach. And if even if there wasn't an observation tower there, which there is, it's still there's no way to sneak in there. And I know the sort of conversation we had in Discord the other day briefly, the mass chat was that there's no sort of strict symmetry to the map. It's more of a general world balance. But I think we did agree that there is a sort of soft mirror of some regions. So I guess the natural neighbour to Ore Breaker is Tempest, and if you look at the kind of from that consideration, Ore Breaker versus Tempest is wide open. It has an island with a relic base that is not covered by observation towers at all, that the Wardens can land on very early, and it does make it a real problem for Colonials to defend. And as they're both logistics hubs, I feel that they both share the trouble of trying to get stuff out there is a bit tricky, but then Ore Breaker is super defendable, and Tempest isn't. So, just what are your thoughts on that, really?
And my thoughts jumped immediately to how much emphasis you're putting on the logic. When we designed this hex world, it came from a time when water logic basically non-existent. Nobody was ever doing anything remotely as complex as the stuff we saw in War 52. So there was much less consideration put into the actual water logi routes as you could have seen from the Godcrofts, right? There was a lot of restrictive water movement, and part of that reason was because the island maps. We tried to do separate islands from the mainland where they just weren't connected, and they were ghost towns. Nobody ever used it for any reason. There was never any action that took place there, and when it was purely PvE. It was really disappointing to see. So we ended up connecting them to the mainland when we finally rejoined when we connected all of the maps of the world. And I can say it's a challenge because between me and Matt, we're both big Navy guys. We're both big island map guys, and I think the island maps have probably been the most iterated on since the Hex World than any of the other maps. Like we've looked at it the most. Like Fisherman's has been redone twice. Tempest has been redone once. Godcroft's was redone once, and then none of the other like mainland maps were really touched. So I'd love to look into that some more. I do admit that the narrow gap for the waterway into Orebreaker certainly doesn't seem right when we block off Fisherman's. But maybe that's not a problem with the war config. Maybe that's not not a problem with like the maps that we blocked off, but rather the map itself, I guess is what I'm saying.
I mean, just to interject personally, I think it opens up a whole new layer of the game if actually the region does change, the meta for a region does change based on the map configuration. I think that could be a really strong tool because it could shake up the games and you could say, okay, this tactic that worked before isn't going to work this war because we don't have this route, so it's going to change it up, and trying to see the positive in everything, which I think is important. I think that could be a good benefit, but it just feels a little bit frustrating. And maybe I thought really the question was, has it been considered? And I guess you can't consider everything; that'd be impossible. So that was just my observation. But no, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Well, with the exception of if getting to that question, like how much consideration do we put into the actual war configs? It's funny because I think me and Mark kind of like pseudo argue about it every time we have a war config, because I think we don't really have a lot of room to make it as dynamic as we'd like. For all of the considerations that were put in for the same answer for the whole world versus the narrower world, we just have there's so many different things tied to it, and balance. I don't know, like with Deadlands when you only have when you can only configure it the one way, like that kind of affects how you can only configure Lochmoor and how you can kind of only configure Marben Hollow, and it just kind of like spirals out from there. And I wish we could make it a little bit more dynamic, but we do pay as much attention as for example, looking at how close the Logi towns are to each other, like the nearest one to your nearest Logi town to their nearest Logi town. How close is the nearest refinery to their Logi town, their factories? All of those things we have to argue about constantly, and we're trying our best to vary it up as much as humanly possible without bringing any instability to the war.
Sounds good. Okay. Thank you. Have I got time for any more, or do you want me to?
You know what? I skipped you, so absolutely we have time for one more.
Okay. Just an idea I had around efficiency. Now, I obviously that you guys have a lot of data that we don't, but it sort of feels that bunker bases and clans can send efficiency kind of one way or the other for a whole team, which feels a little bit wrong. So, for example, the amount of U parts that a storm cannon takes to get going, and then the amount of U parts that you put in extra to get the advanced range fighting can probably sway efficiency for a team quite severely. So I guess my idea was, what would you guys think about moving all of the U part upgrades for a bunker base into the infrastructure type system? So bunker bases don't utilize U parts in any way. Everything you do in a bunker base, because they are effectively like clan bases. Could we move that out of the U part system entirely, so U parts are only used really for AI and FOBs and garrison camps, etc., and civic centers and stuff like that?
Yeah, I'm not sure if that's exactly something that we would do, but I think the issue of not having the agency to be able to do what you need to do, especially if you planned a long time for something, and the problem of, okay, you were trying to do something, you planned for it, but on that particular day, it looks like on that particular time you're playing, it looks like efficiency is low. We want to try to provide some avenue for players to be able to work around that, right? But not in like an easy way, but in a way where if you put the work into it, maybe you won't be at the mercy of the RNG. You won't be at the mercy of like what happened to happen on that day because everyone was building a bunker base. I think that's something that we are interested in terms of specifically the storm cannon. I think that's an interesting one. Um, I don't know. Right now, I think that's a question that we probably have to um, think about. I think one of our biggest fears at the beginning of the storm cannon is that it would be used as like an offensive weapon, and it would become sort of the default way that you attack, and it would undermine the infantry battles in the game. And we wanted it to be upfront. We did wanted it to be more of a defensive weapon, and the upgrade parts was sort of there to make sure that you are willing to like invest in it, and you are willing to it's not just a throwaway thing that you use to push forward, but it is like we want to like defend this area. So it's an interesting question that you pose, and to be honest, I don't have the specific answer for something like the storm cannon or the bunker base or moving it to the infrastructure system. But I think it's something that we're willing to take a look at.
Okay, cool. Thank you. I'll ask one more if I can, but I've got a whole list, but it's not fair. When you originally showcased the bunker bases and concrete and things like that, I seem to remember that in the concept art, we had things like sand/lime fields to make concrete from. And I'm pretty sure I'm not going crazy. I think that was a thing. And at some point, obviously, the decision was made that concretes will come from components. Are there any plans in the future to split that out, and so concrete comes from its own sort of dedicated resource? Because obviously, on the one hand, it adds more work for logistics, but on the other, it seems to make more logical sense that concrete would come from a different resource to old tanks and stuff like that. But also, obviously, with scarcity being a thing that it is, and the conversion rate of components to armats being 20-1 and concrete being 10-1, it's kind of like you see a component field respawn on the map and it gets destroyed. You just see like people flock to it like flies, and it's gone in minutes. So is that something that you guys foresee in the future, or is it something that is in your vision? Or
So I won't talk too much about the scarcity issue because I feel like that's kind of been talked about a lot.
Yeah.
But I think in terms of the theming, I don't know if it's something that will change anytime soon. But I do hear you. I do hear you on the theming, and that is something that we constantly do care about. Like, even as recent as like this afternoon, we were talking about the theming around certain systems in the game, like something like an upgrade part. Does that really make sense? Like in World War II, people weren't they were like carrying around a whole bunch of like gears to be able to make a to like switch on like a town hall, right? Like these things do matter to us, and sometimes like internal on the team, someone will like bring that up, and we do take it seriously, even if it's like inconsequential for the actual like gameplay. We do care, and like when someone speaks up about it, we do take it as a serious thing. Like, you know what, that even though it's working out as a gameplay thing, or kind of like irrelevant from the gameplay side, we do want it to make sense, and we do want it to feel like this could have happened in like World War II. So I think we would care about that. I just don't know if that's to be upfront. I don't know if changing where your concrete comes from is necessarily like something that you'll see happen in the next couple of months. But we do care about the theming in that way.
Okay. Well, thanks very much.
Yeah, Foxy, thank you so much. Again, we usually don't take, or we never take, donations or monetary value of anything. But hey, I think, we were surprised with Nitro boost, and I'm not really, again, I wasn't really too familiar with that before it happened, but hey, if you notice that our call quality has improved, we're not getting dropped calls, we're not getting poor quality, that's because of this man right here. So thank you, Foxy. Thank you again for calling in.
Thank you, Foxy.
As always.
More than welcome. Always a pleasure. Thank you.
Wait, so since he's given us donations, does that mean that we get paid now? Can I get some more food in the basement?
No. So we're gonna move on to.
Is it gonna go back to eat my sushi?
This is probably our last one, or
Yes.
Yeah.
at least
Again,
for
I
me.
apologize to all the other callers, but I think this will be our last one here. It's been 2 hours and 40 minutes. So thank you so much.
I swear to God, I am always the last person in every
Yeah, you
Zero
better
Dark.
make it good.
Yeah, I'll make it quick. Alright, so... yeah, I've made, I don't know if you guys have seen the Foxhole miniatures. And...
Have we seen them? Yes, we've seen them.
Yeah, I know you've seen them, but I'm working on a train one because I don't have my trains in Foxhole yet, so that's why I'm making a train one.
Typical.
And so, yeah.
You need to make the trains. People are getting restless.
Yes, but anyway, can I share a war story? And something I don't know.
Of course.
Okay, so the assault on Fearmore. For some reason, we had, and we managed to kamikaze all three of them. We killed a collie battle tank. But for some reason, I don't know why, a colonial, you know, in Fearmore has the river with the two bridges and it splits that.
Yeah.
Well, a colonial managed to get over to our side, wrench a BT, and then he drove it into the water, and then this BT turned into a submarine, and it could just drive through the river.
Oh no.
And it did not sink.
Please add submarines, we already got them.
I don't know if it was a glitch, or if it's just the river isn't deep enough that the BT can actually just drive through the entire river.
Or it's a feature.
And what's more, it was disabled. And it was still driving in the river, and they managed to steal it, but we killed it, but the BT can be a submarine in that river, so...
You're a wizard,
I don't know if that's a bug, but it's... yeah.
Better exploit it now.
So...
We need some PressCorps Zeppelin photos of just BTs rolling through Lake Fearmore.
Last time I was here, we established Geoffrey Jennings caused the Hindenburg disaster.
Wait, hold on, I wasn't here.
I did not cause it. That is a complete fabrication.
Hold on, I'd like to hear Bob's story because I was not here for the last time.
Complete coincidence that I was late for it.
Did you meet a man called the Doctor beforehand who told you to sell your tickets?
I know what you're talking about.
The last time I was on here, we established Geoffrey was a Nazi on the Hindenburg, and that was the PressCorps headquarters.
There's probably a lot of Nazis on the Hindenburg.
I don't think Matt likes this lore. All right, Bob.
So
did you have anything else?
Oh no, carry on. Thanks for the game, devs. You've kept my lockdown interesting. So thanks, Mark. I guess there.
Thanks for the models.
Swear to God, more time would be poured in.
I need to paint a bunch of Foxhole miniatures and then send them over to the Clapfoot studio so you can make your own.
Hey, I got a question for you. Are you reusing your dioramas? Like, are you breaking down the old ones and reusing them, or are you keeping them all?
No, they're all in my shed.
Jeez, that must be expensive.
Not really, because a lot of it I've gotten for free.
Okay.
So a lot of it I just find stuff and I'm like, oh, chuck that on, chuck this on, or a lot of it I just get on sale really cheap. The most expensive thing is the actual, the amount of glue I use and the actual miniatures. But yeah,
it's amazing miniatures, man. I especially love the last one, which looked like Abandoned Ward at Iron Junction. Was it
Iron's End? It was the Iron's End bridge. Yeah, I couldn't get the rocks, but it was Iron's End in the autumn. Like, but without because that was the trees I had. Yeah, that's what I made with it.
Even the house looked right. That was great.
Yeah, I just found this random house in this bottom of this drawer. I'm like, oh, I'll use this then. And that's how I used, since the trench update was in, I added trenches in that one as well. But yeah. I have one Foxhole model above my PC monitor, and that's the assault on that snowy hill I made. Just with a field artillery gun and stuff.
Nice, I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, anyway, I'll leave you chaps be. Have a good night. Thanks for talking and keeping me entertained.
Thank you so much. Have a good one.
Goodbye, Geoffrey. Have a chicken.
He left before I could drag him out. It's been 2 hours and 45 minutes. So again, as we close out here, just want to say thank you to all of our callers. Thank you to the callers who didn't make it onto the show but stuck it out anyway. We'll do our best to get you on next time. And of course, absolutely, thank you to our developer guests here tonight for donating extra time that they didn't even need to spend. Of course, lead developer Markfoot and community manager KrazyFlyinChicken for spending time with the community. Thank you so much.
No, thank you for having us. These are always awesome. It's an amazing platform.
Yeah, so I think we'll close it out here. You'll find this this video on PressCorps PressCorps Foxhole Desk, the YouTube channel. It's linked in the Discord as well. Find that link there. We'll get that on up as soon as possible, and keep your eye out for PressCorps Radio coming back on the air. I think we'll get it up as soon as we can tomorrow. Hopefully we'll be able there to get you some music and get you some more community content, which is always our mission. So with that having been said, thank you, good night, and good fight.
The PressCorps is a non-profit creative collective of artists, reporters, and players from the MMO video game Foxhole by Clapfoot. Our mission is to engross our audience in and amplify the stories of this unique war ecosystem. The PressCorps was founded in early 2018 by former PlanetSide 2 Radio Free Araxis host, Captain in Arms. It is a separate community entity and is in no way representative of Clapfoot. For more info, visit the PressCorps Discord through the link below.